Well, hello. Hello. It's the 4th of July, isn't it? It's the 4th of July 2024, and everybody on both sides of the Atlantic is very giddy and excited and full of optimism and all that kind of stuff. And if you believe that, you've not come to the right place, he said, choking on his own words. This is Paul English Live. We're here on WBN 324 for the next couple of hours, maybe a bit longer elsewhere. I'll fill you in as we go. Well, let's start the show. Here we go. I press this button here and I think about the elections and the freedom of the American people. How interesting. I can see all over the place that people have been out busily voting and doing whatever you do in America. We're going to find out about everything over the next few hours. Actually, we're probably going to find out about very little indeed that we don't already know. I should be joined by a couple of American reprobates. Patrick's on hand. He's going to be joining us soon. He's just rustling up a cup of coffee. It's a little bit earlier in the day for him. But we're into the evening and we're full of excitement as we get adorned with a new government. Blah. We're going to be joined by a few people tonight. I was just saying something there, but I think I'd sat on the mute button. That was probably better, actually. Yeah, hi everyone, and welcome back. It's Thursday. It's that time of the week again. It's a very special Thursday for all of us on both sides of the Atlantic. In America, the Americans are celebrating the 4th of July, which is when they gave us British a right old bloody nose and sent us home packing in 1776, and jolly well good done to them and all that kind of stuff. And now apparently they're free. We're free as well, apparently, to cast votes in elections. And some of you reprobates may have well been out doing that filthy, terrible habit. I hope not, but I don't mind if you have, because you can call in and tell us about your sordid experience about which lame-fisted, lame-brained idiot you've voted for, because I don't think I'm saying anything untoward there, am I? I think that's really what we're faced with in these most arduous of times. We have to also deal with these mediocre, ambitious fools that sit in front of us and just talk complete garbage. After 20 or 30 years of listening to it, I'm a little bit tired of the whole thing. I don't know how you are, how you feel about it, but I'd like to think that you might let us know. So one of the little blurbs that I put out for this show, I'll tell you about who the chap is, by the way, in the picture. That's quite interesting and weird as well. We've got an image of he's called AI Steve. That might give you a clue, right? I actually got quite encouraged by AI Steve. And he's down the road, is AI Steve. Yeah, he really is, and he really exists. I don't know if you can actually cast a vote for him, but we'll look at that a little bit later. Yes, it's giddy times here in the UK. Now, whilst we're on air here on WBN for the next couple of hours, which we are, we're going to close out we will close out at 10 p.m. UK time on WBN, which is 5 p.m. US Eastern, which is a pity in a way, because The polling results, the first polling results are due to be released. I just got a message from my good friend Andy Hitchcock a few minutes here before we went live. He won't be joining us because he doesn't want to get involved in all this sordid stuff, and who can disagree? But he was letting me know that the exit polls, or whatever it is, will be published on the BBC website about 10 o'clock. I suspect we probably will still be on air then. We're likely to overrun our 2-hour slot on WBN. So if it's a fantastic show, even if it's a terrible show actually, and you want to carry on listening, you can do so by getting across to paulenglishlive.com. If you go to paulenglishlive.com, you can find links into Rumble, which so far, touch wood, this week, I've had nobody in the chat telling me that the sound's bad. And I don't know why I'm apologizing for last week. That was a Rumble issue. So those of you tuned in last week, for the first 15, 20 minutes, there was all sorts of blah, 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 and stuff like that. That's kind of what we were doing. But I understand the sound's okay today. So that's pretty cool, isn't it? Anyway, so I'd like to hear from you tonight. If you can muster up the courage, you can certainly type in the Rumble chat. And if that's how you're most comfortable communicating, I've got my eyes stuck on it right now. And I think I can still read even after 3 vodkas. But that's one way to do it. And everybody's quite comfortable with that. But I would also like to hear from you, possibly, if you can do it. So you can call into the show. Basically, you do it over the internet with this thing. We have a studio, a little online audio studio. If you go to paulenglishlive.com/call, CALL, and that's a bit of a mouthful, you'll also see a link to this on the paulenglishlive.com homepage. You'll come through to an online studio, and you can pitch in. Now, why might you want to pitch in? I don't know why you might, but I hope you get the urge. Because I'd like to hear what policies yes, you, dear listener, what you would insist upon, what you would enforce, what you would compel everybody to obey as and when and should you become boss of the UK, which, of course, we all know is highly likely for all of us to do that. Now, I was just interested to know what kind of quirky, they can be very eccentric policies. They don't have to be anything normal. I mean, there's nothing normal about the policies that the mainstream parties are selling. I mean, have we ever heard of these policies ever before? Like forever. Like, we're going to lower income tax. Oh, great. That's worth voting for people. We're going to reapportion income tax. Oh, brilliant. All of these things are going to solve our problems. As many of you here who might tune in regularly know, it's not so much that I'm cynical, and I suspect it's not even that you're cynical. It's just that you're informed, and you should by now probably know, most people do know, that the real power in the nation does not lie with politicians. They are the actors. And that's what we're always looking for, isn't it? Good actors to help us along, chug along, and keep lying to us and keep everything going tickety-boo. Anyway, we may be joined by more people here in the main studio as we go along, but right now I think I'm going to bring Patrick on. Patrick, are you there? Have you got your coffee in hand? No, he's not. How about that? Coffee's taking some time. Okay, not to worry. So, exit polls. Is everybody? Oh, right. Oh, gosh, look at that. You shocked me, Patrick. How are you this fine afternoon? And how's the coffee?
Quite well. Oh,
yeah?
Very good. Espresso, yes. Good stuff.
I was speaking to a fellow cheesehead yesterday. By the way, if you don't know what a cheesehead is, it's somebody who lives in Wisconsin. Isn't that right, Patrick?
Yeah. You're from Wisconsin if you're a cheesehead.
Yep. So I was speaking to author Tom Goodrich yesterday. Many people will know of him. Pardon?
He's a cheesehead?
Yeah, he's. I don't know how far he is from you, but he's been in Cheeseland. I said, "How's it going in Cheeseland?" yesterday, and so we ended up having a quick chat. Tom is the author of many a splendid history book with what you would call an alternative view. Hang on, I'm just choking here. And so I hadn't spoken to him for a few months, but I just got some time yesterday. I had a fantastic chat with him. He's the author of some tremendous books. I mean, really outstanding. The one, of course...
Hellstorm.
Yeah, that's right. That's the one I was going to mention. Hellstorm is... Yeah. Hellstorm is an unbelievably, as he knows, I sort of tease him about this, but it's meant in good. It's a terrible book. It's absolutely terrible and horrible, and but I mean it. It's not a terribly written book. It's just about terrible, horrible things, and it's extremely powerful. And I recorded the audiobook for that about, I can't believe this, I think it's about 7 years ago, 2017 or something like that. And I just got a chance to talk to him yesterday, Patrick. So I don't know how long he's been in Wisconsin, I think for about a year. And interestingly, he likes cheese. So I thought, well, you've moved to the right place, right?
Wow. Yeah, he's in the perfect place.
Yeah, I mean, I think if I do move to America, I'm probably going to end up becoming your neighbor as well, because I quite like cheese too. But sadly, he was also informing me that since he's got there, he's not eaten any cheese. And I thought there's something obviously seriously wrong with him. So I don't know whether we need to have a whip round and buy him a few blocks of good old cheese. Of course, I've never eaten American dairy cheese. I mean, we're all familiar with the sort of sloppy goo squirty cheese that you guys do, which I don't mind. I know it's ersatz to a degree, but as ersatz things go, it's really rather fantastic, I think, at times. But yeah, so I had a good chat with Tom yesterday. Tom, of course, is suitably giddy about the 4th of July. Not. He wasn't overly excited about it either. So anyway, what's the mood like in America? I'm sure you can't possibly think about the UK election. You must be just. Have you set any fireworks off yet? What happens? What's going to happen today? Because it's early in the day for you, isn't it? Really, just gone lunchtime or 2:00 in the afternoon.
The sky is threatening to rain, so for fireworks, it's not the best outlook at the moment. But
right.
It's a new moon, so for fireworks, a new moon is perfect because you get this nice dark sky that you can look at the fireworks.
Yeah.
They're a lot more vibrant that way. So, yeah, definitely mood is good because everybody has a day off of work that, is smart. And, yeah, everybody's in a good mood, I'd assume. And the traffic is crazy. You don't go to the stores around this time because, especially around here, all the people come up from the Twin Cities to go to their cabins and various places because we have lots of lakes and resorts in this area of northwestern Wisconsin.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's good mood. Very, very happy mood.
Fantastic. So will there be a lot of fireworks in your state? Is it still a strong tradition out there? I'm just trying to find out, really.
Yeah, there'll be fireworks. People usually buy fireworks and light them off at their houses, or there are a few towns in our area that do a 4th of July show.
Yeah.
Where they'll go around a lake typically in a park and sit around and watch the fireworks as they go off. So yeah, the neighboring town here, Siren, has fireworks, a few others.
Wow.
I'm sure all over the country people will be lighting them off. They were doing it last night already. Yeah,
that's
typical.
good. Yeah.
It's good.
Well, it's more exciting than what's going on here. I mean, I don't know. That probably if we were to tune into the news channels, and we're not going to do anything quite so foolish as that, we will be met by an array of apoplectic political pundits. Actually, it used to be a lot more fun in the past. They used to have a thing called a swingometer over here, and all that kind of stuff. They used to have a swingometer. I've just found what I was looking for as well. And the swingometer would tell you which seats were going here, there, and everywhere. It's like watching paint dry. I mean, it's just absolutely beyond. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculously dull. So everybody here who's in the UK that's listening to the show, I don't know what's going on with you, but I can't imagine it's too much in terms of excitement and in terms of what we're going to achieve. And I did hear a great term though the other day. Some guy was on some news thing, and I've got a little 3-minute clip to play here about the artificial intelligence thing in a second. I was just looking it up, but one of the candidates here, Patrick, there won't be a quiz about this afterwards, is a chap called Sir. I don't know how that happens, by the way. It's all very odd. Sir Keir Starmer, and not to be confused with Kia, the car manufacturer, nor to be confused with IKEA, the great furnishing retailer, although many of their wardrobes are actually much more exciting and interesting than Sir Keir Starmer. Anyway, one of these pundits called him, they said, yeah, when Labour get in. So the expectation over here is that the Labour Party, which have been out of power for 14 years, are going to absolutely roll it through tonight. They're just going to hammer all comers, and they're just going to get the most colossal majority, which is actually an extremely worrying thought. It really is. I mean, they've got...
Yes.
We've got a lot of goofballs in the Conservative Party, but I think when it comes to goofiness and dumb woke policies, Labour possibly are going to end up being in a league of their own, and they're just passing the baton on. And as I've said here before, and as many people know, it doesn't matter which party you vote for, the problem is the government always gets in, and they're taking their orders from elsewhere. Anyway, one of these political guys, I think it was on Sky News, another reputable news outlet, was calling it Starmageddon, which I actually quite liked, really. I thought, well, that's good. I go for little jingoistic words, like little things like that, you know. So if Labour roll through tonight with this, everybody, it will be known as Starmageddon, and we're going to be wiped out by his woke policies. This is the guy who said he would rather spend more time in Europe with the globalists than he would actually looking after this nation. And I think in that regard, you could at least... give him a few points for being honest, because that's what they all would rather do. In fact, that's what they all do. It's just that he said it, I suppose. So, not that that's anything really to recommend him by, but yes. I
remember Starmer from Beergate back during the COVID lockdowns. Do you remember this incident where he was caught drinking beer and partying it up with people? It was James Dellingpole's son caught him on camera doing this.
Really? Oh, that's good old James Dellingpole's son. I remember it now. Yeah, he sloped off to the pub, didn't he? He sloped off to the pub. And this is the guy who did nothing about the Jimmy Savile problem. And he could have done, because he was high up in the legal profession at the time. In fact, I've forgotten what his official post was. But it came across his desk. He could have, I can't do anything, he said. Well, probably because he was ordered not to do anything. Of course, that puts him in the same camp as the BBC, who also did nothing as well, you know. So anyway, speaking of interesting candidates, I'm going to play you a clip here from NBC News. Okay, let me just unmute the tab here. Hopefully, this is on YouTube, so hopefully this will play okay. The title is Meet the AI Candidate Steve, who's running for the UK Parliament. All right, here we go. Let's see what Steve's like.
How many times have you heard this one? A politician wanting to reinvent politics.
Hi, I'm AI Steve, standing to be MP for Brighton and Hove.
But what happens when the candidate is the actual invention? Meet Steve. That is, AI Steve. An avatar on the ballot, a UK first.
You're actively dangerous.
Dangerous? You think the public can't be trusted?
It may feel like something out of that dystopian Black Mirror episode where a comedian uses a computer-generated avatar to cause electoral chaos. But now it's happening in real life, sort of, with AI Steve running as an independent. AI Steve, was Brexit a good idea?
Brexit is a complex issue with varied opinions.
He can dodge a question like a real politician, but AI Steve will do exactly what his constituents tell it to do in Parliament, according to its creator, Steve Endicott.
Policies for the people, by the people.
The human version of Steve says he's an eco-friendly capitalist with a conscience who is fed up with traditional politics. But he promises he'll follow AI Steve's guidance if elected. Politics is all about human interaction, Steve.
We're using AI to involve more humans in political decisions. That's not AI taking over Parliament or taking over government. It's the opposite. It's AI empowering me as a politician to be directly connected on a daily basis with my constituents.
AI Steve, he says, is his co-pilot, who can have up to 10,000 conversations at once. Constituents will vote on every policy issue, and human volunteers will weed out extremism.
Well, it's the first MP ever does what it's told. I don't know if you have any politicians in America do what they're told, but we don't here.
The current local MP from the Green Party is stepping down, leaving room for a slew of candidates from many parties. Across the country, Conservatives are trailing ahead of the July 4th elections, with the UK's Labour Party expected to win big after 14 years in opposition. Experts are increasingly worried about AI undermining elections.
Make it look like anyone is saying anything at any point in time.
From deepfake videos to robo-voice calls.
A magician using artificial intelligence to make robocalls pretending to be the president.
Former Pakistani leader Imran Khan used AI to voice campaign speeches from prison. And in the U.S., a candidate running for mayor of Wyoming's capital says he'll govern by AI bot, calling himself merely a puppet. Real Steve believes his AI alter ego can bolster democracy if done properly.
He's always available, and he's handled 2,500 calls in the last 3 days. I couldn't do that. So we need to actually fix our broken politics and do something about it. So at least I'm trying.
AI Steve was designed by Neural Voice. It's an AI voice company, and we need to point out the real Steve is a minority shareholder in the company. Since the website went live on Monday, he says the top 3 issues have been Israel's war with Hamas, garbage collection, and cycling lanes. Tom?
Thanks for watching.
AI Steve, eh? Is everybody excited about that? So AI Steve, by the way, if you're on Rumble and you're looking at that picture, there he is. That's him. There's AI Steve. He's down in Brighton. Well, he's not, actually. He's on the interwebs, isn't he? He's an ethereal being. He's a virtual being. But the idea that he answered 2,600 calls is quite impressive. I actually suddenly thought, maybe this is the solution. I mean, if we're going to be covered by automatons, why don't we have a real one actually doing it? Is that the first time you've heard that, Patrick?
Yeah. He's going to weed out extremism. That's wonderful. That.
Yeah, that would probably include this show then, I suppose. I feel a bit extremist, you know. So
next thing, they'll be weeding out extremists.
Absolutely. I think he's quite dashing, actually. He's quite nice. He's got, good grey sideburns. He seems reasonably articulate. He does look a little bit like his creator. He's like a more romanticised version of Steve Endicott, who's created him. And I was thinking, could I get him to come on the show? But he'd be so busy tonight. So if he really is on the ballot, and I don't know whether that's true or not, I don't think that would actually pass electoral law. No, but maybe it does. I mean, we used to have a party over here called the Raving Monster Loony Party, whose policies, I think, in comparison to what we've got today, are probably pretty sensible, to be quite honest. Did you ever hear of them? The Raving Monster Loony? Yeah.
Monster Loony Party. No,
that's right.
It's like Monty Python and the Silly Party and the Sensible Party.
That's right. Actually, I would have probably voted for either the Sillies or the Sensibles if they'd been on the ballot. But there was a guy called Screaming Lord Such. I don't think he was baptized that, Patrick. Screaming Lord Such. He was the leader of the Raving Monster Loony Party, and he lost his deposit something like 38 times. But he was always good for a bit of PR on the TV. He had a sort of top hat and had some extremely... I think his policies probably would be fantastic these days. I don't even know what they were, but they certainly wouldn't be dull. And I just wonder, anybody out there listening on the Rumble chat, if you remember, do you remember Screaming Lord Such and the Raving Monster Loony Party? I hope you do. He's unfortunately shuffled off this mortal coil, so we can't vote for him anymore. So, I don't think you have that kind of eccentric approach to politics over in the US, do you?
Oh, we probably do, but it's a local thing if it is. We don't normally get third parties. It's usually the mono party of the Republicans versus Democrats, and that's about it. Yeah, especially when it comes to things like the presidential elections, where it's all done by. It's not a popular vote. People think that it might, be that we vote for the president. Well, what we are actually doing is voting for who's going to be the delegate, or which party is going to decide which delegate it chooses the president. And it's called the Electoral College. It's been around for too long, in my opinion. But that's how we do it, and that keeps it so that we have Tweedledee and Tweedledum, running for president, and. That's the way our controllers, the money bosses, like it. So
cool.
So be it.
Can't wait. Well, you've only got a few months to go before your embarrassing pantomime act starts running on November the 5th. I've mentioned this before, but yours is on November the 5th, isn't it, this year? Which,
Yeah, remember.
Yeah. Well, we've got the Guy Fawkes thing here. They're swapping all the dates around and everything. Well, they're not really doing that. But, of course, I'm still slightly puzzled as to why they called the UK election on this day. Maybe it's because they don't want Americans to pay any attention to it. I mean, I would have thought your attention...
Probably.
Yeah,
most Americans probably have no idea that it's even going on.
No. And it's only the little
as far
old
as I know.
UK with all those silly people on it, and I don't blame them, to be quite honest. I'd probably feel the same way. So, yeah, who knows why? Who knows why the 5th of July? Looks to me like we've been joined by another one of your compatriots. I think we have, although he's currently on mute. Paul, are you there? And are you listening like a surreptitious spy, or are you ready to communicate and say things? I don't really know.
No, he's shy.
Paul, are you there? He's very shy.
Do one more thing here.
There it
Push
is.
another button. There we go.
Hey, Paul.
Paul B., welcome to the show. How are you this fine afternoon? And have you got your fireworks ready for later on in your day?
No. Actually, I find that costs fingers most of the time. I apologize that I'm late to the.
I should think so. It's
party
outrageous.
here.
What do you think you're doing? Outrageous.
Yeah, actually, the Global Voice Network stream only came up like 10 minutes ago, and it was actually, until I worked out a problem, it was actually grabbing a feed from one of the people in PPN Radio Ranch. So, yeah, it's been fun. Everything is working swimmingly now.
Cool.
Even though I missed most of the.
No, that's great, Paul.
Boy, that
and it's good to
AI
have you
story,
here. It's good to have you here. It's great. So welcome to the show. It's good to have you here.
Well, thank you. That AI story, that was amazing. I mean, I was trying to do the switchover, but with the 40 or 50 second delay between us and Rumble, I didn't want to change it. I was positively enthralled by that story.
Yeah, I'm just going to in Rumble. I'm going to paste the link to the YouTube thing that I just put in. So if you want to go and have a look, maybe, hey, if there's any listeners down in Brighton who still haven't cast their vote, maybe you want to, put your trousers on and leg it down to the polling station, see if he's on the ballot. I don't really know. I have no idea, but I just thought, at first I was all snotty about it because everybody goes AI. It's just it's non-stop. AI is going to change the world. And of course, left in the hands of the incumbents, it will probably change it more rapidly in the wrong direction than they're currently going. However, the idea of actually having an AI politician means that we might actually get a politician that even has a personality. It's just absolutely, it's bizarre. But I can't think of a politician that could answer 2,600 phone calls. In fact, I can't think of a politician that can talk properly. Well, there's a few. Andrew Bridgen can, and a few others. And I'm not really laying it on thick here. I'm really not. It's not that they can't communicate in public. They're trained to do all that kind of stuff. But we've got a comment in here from Gristle, good name, Gristle0088. Hi, Gristle. He said he is on the ballot for sure. Well, that's fantastic. If anybody gets more information about AI Steve, would you let us know? I should have tried. Maybe I could get him on the show later on. We could just end up doing a show where we talk to an AI bot. I don't know how much appeal that would have. Maybe you could sort of mimic the idea over there, Paul, and get somebody. Can you have an AI party? You might as well. American Independence Party. Look, there you go. See, I'm good at the acronym stuff. So you get the American Independence Party going, and then you have all these AI candidates. They'd outperform all your current lot, I would have thought, by a country mile.
You can talk to AI Steve. Go to ai-steve.co.uk and talk to Steve.
Is that what you've just been doing now, Patrick? You've gone off.
I just looked it up. Yeah, you mentioned it. I put it in. Yes, you can.
Yeah.
We should actually see if he'll join us on the show.
Yeah.
I know. I just didn't. I mean, I only spotted it yesterday morning, and I've just not had enough time to do it. And I thought, ooh, cool. When we were knocking this picture together, I thought I like it. You know, he's quite nice, isn't he? I'm just being pathetic, by the way. You know, I just thought I wouldn't take too many cynical tablets today. He's smartly turned out, and he's a complete lump of software. And so there we go. I mean, Ether writes, artificial intelligence is an oxymoron. It is. I agree with you. It shall not work either, in my opinion. Completely concur. Unfortunately, it's in the hands of people that want to sell it, you know, all that kind of stuff. And do you see a lot of the fear porn about AI is going to do this and AI is going to do that? I mean, yet again, it's one of these, let's assume that it's a technological advance. Let's just assume that for now and go along with it. Yet again, it's a tool that's only going to sit in the hands of the select few on a large scale. Oh, that was interesting. And, you know, we won't get access to it at that kind of level. Not that I'm looking for it. And I think I said something last week. There is a letter or some kind of communication that's been floating around, which is, I saw this woman write, she said, I don't want AI to do all the songs and all the lyrics and write books and read things to me. I don't either. What I need it to do is to do the washing up, go shopping for me, keep the house clean. You know, we do need it to do that, don't we? But that would mean robots. And then, of course, then we're into sci-fi when the robots rebel and kill us. You know, but maybe that would actually be more fun than what we've got at the moment, because it's pretty dull around here with all these maniacs running around talking rubbish, you know. So, was that the link to the site there, Patrick, that you just flashed through?
Yes,
I think it
yes.
was. Okay. If I can get my wits about me, I'll paste it into the Rumble chat, or or maybe you could. No, I'll do that.
I'll do
paste
it. Yeah,
that.
right now.
Okay, cool.
I got it.
That's fantastic. So no, that'd be great. And I'm going to keep on doing this for a little bit. If we get no response on it, it's okay. But if you want to call in and say something, because it's political night, right? This is the one time every 5 years, apparently, dear people of England, Scotland, Ireland, well, not Ireland, but Northern Ireland and Wales, where you can have your say. You can cast a vote and change the future direction of this nation, don't you know? It says so in the small print somewhere. So if you want to gob off here on this show, it'd be great. Any policies you've got, any ideas? Probably people know what my policies are. I kind of, communicated them in that little blurb I did a few weeks back, that we've really got to shut the bank down. I mean, I'm being serious now, but I don't want to be so serious all the time. But if you've got any policy ideas, there's so many interesting things that could be suggested that never come up, that it's such a narrow band that they talk about. And all they talk about is really the economy. That's all, or variations of it, housing, this, that, and the other. As we know, as I would suggest strongly, let me put it that way, he said diplomatically, it's almost irrelevant talking about it because they won't talk about the bank. They've had some of the political leaders, of course, of these parties on telly over here recently, and but they haven't had the governor of the Bank of England, nor have they had all the stockholders of the Bank of England. Why aren't they on? I was thinking about it the other day. I thought, I want a show with them on during general election. You know, what are you going to let the politicians do, oh big money boss types? What are you going to let them do? Of course, I'm living in La Land here, but were I Prime Minister, that's one of my... that would be one of my orders. I would make it almost a law that the heads of the Bank of England would have to enter into a public communications campaign to inform everybody in England about who owns the bank, what they're doing, and they need to make those operations transparent so that we can all see in real terms just what little power the politicians have without the say-so of the bank, which I would imagine is almost total. They're just, that's kind of the way. I know I'm a bit like a broken record with this.
Well, did the king bring the bank into existence? How did that work in the creation of the Bank of England? Because I know here the Federal Reserve Act passed by Congress is what put the Federal Reserve in control of the money printing power. How did it work?
It was a similar sort of... Basically, you would call it like the moneyed class, right? The patrician class is what they were called back in Greece and Rome, okay? That group of individuals, the biggest merchants going, as it were, gathered themselves together and began to work on The seigniorage laws. This was in the mid-1600s. So the Bank of England comes about in 1694, but there was an ongoing several decades of campaigning and skullduggery taking place, courtesy of a woman whose name escapes me. And if I had the link on the... But she was a bit of a tart, right? And she went around and was compromising many of the ministers in all sorts of obvious ways that you could probably think of, right? Even back then, nothing really changes, right?
Like Judith from the Bible.
Exactly. Like a naughty modern-day Judith from the Bible, and she was seducing them. And they were, she was giving them certain favors, and they were yielding up their integrity, as it were, and didn't mind at the time. But the law, the power to coin or to mint coins, this is where it, because obviously we had physical coins and notes to some degree, but physical coins of gold, silver, and then base metals like copper and other things as well. The right to actually mint them, the power for that rested in the monarch. It was the monarch's power to do that, by which they would charge a fee for the minting of coins from the royal mint, and by which they raised revenue for the court and the operations and management of the country. Of course, this is pre the wonderful gifts of democracy and the party political system. That was rolling through in the 1600s as well and building up a head of steam by then. But they managed to, and I can't really go through it. It's detailed, and it's probably too detailed really for this show, and I don't have it in front of me, so I'd need some notes to go through that. But they managed to effectively chip away at this power and convince them, just like they convinced your representatives with the arrival of the Federal Reserve. So the pitch that you guys received was, we need a flexible money supply to cope with the variations in the economy. Oh, it's jolly good. Of course, this is complete crap. You don't need anything of the sort. Or if you do, you certainly don't need it in private hands. And they convinced or persuaded or corrupted or blackmailed or bribed or threatened, and probably a combination of all of those things, the leading people of the day. And they got hold of the seigniorage power, the power to coin the money. And that was the beginning of the end of fiscal independence for the English and for the Scots and for the Welsh and for the people of Northern Ireland. For the people of these islands, that was the beginning of the real control grid, which we've endured ever since. Of course, it didn't have all the power that it has today. Right at the beginning, back in 1694, it didn't have all of that. But once it got its foot in the door, it became impossible to sort of get it out. Or let's put it this way, up to press, it has proved not possible to do it. And of course, part of the reason for that is that most people don't even know this. It's certainly not taught in English or British schools, I can tell you that. And I didn't see any political leader being asked about this. And I'm going to go back to that clip again, which I listened to again, the one from Liz Truss. And I think repetition is the base of radio, so you may have heard me say this before, but we need to keep on reminding ourselves. Liz Truss, this woman who only sat in there for 49 days, the shortest serving Prime Minister ever, so at least I guess she's notable for that. But she pointed out that the Governor of the Bank of England cannot be sacked, but the Prime Minister can. Therefore, question, who has the most power? Well, it ain't the Prime Minister. And that's,
So
that's basically...
sack him?
Can she sack him? No, she got no power over it because it's...
The king. You said
No, the king, him. Charles
no
III,
power.
the current one at the moment. No, they've never been... They sort of... We're not supposed to pry too deeply, but they can't do that. I mean, although there's a thing where the monarch used to visit the city of London. Now, that hasn't happened since Charles III's reign began in earnest, and it's all been so exciting and brilliant and wonderful. It's just a complete non-event, of course, which it's designed to be. But his mother, Queen Elizabeth II, did go to the city of London on several occasions, and the monarch is instructed to go dressed as a commoner. It's very... They're sending you signals about who's in charge. She cannot go wearing her crown, which she used to get very upset about because I understand she used to wear it all day long. Look at me, I'm the queen. No, she didn't, of course. Yeah. But she wasn't allowed to wear a robe. There couldn't be any courtiers. There's no trumpets. There's no fanfare. There's no royal carriage with magnificent horses and all that kind of stuff. There's none of the monarch has arrived type thing. She had to go, I think, and knock on a door or something like that. It's a bit like they have in the Houses of Parliament over here when they start the new session. And she would walk behind the mayor of the City of London. And that's kind of telling you who's boss. She has effectively been put in a position, or the arrangement is such. And I guess it's a bit like a good cop, bad cop thing. All these little sort of walls around the power centre so that you can't really get to it. And the Queen or the monarch now forms part of that wall. So she can't sack them. And I think we go back to that quote from Disraeli. Or actually, is it Disraeli? Or it's a character in Disraeli's novel, Coningsby, I think it is. I've forgotten the name of the banker, but he's got a banker in there, which loosely is based on Rothschild of the time, Nathaniel Rothschild, the guy that profited a great deal from the Battle of Waterloo. And he's basically saying the world is governed by persons that nobody knows about. That's the gist of the quote from the novel. And it's not changed since then, of course. So the money power is it, as you know, I bang on about this. I was actually, the weekend just gone, Eric von Essex. Hi, Eric. I can see you lingering and lurking in the chat room, and feel free to join us on the call connection if you get the urge. I had a good little show with, Eric invited me onto his show on Sunday, just gone, and we had a good chat for a couple of hours, really about this and about the history of elections and the money power. And of course, it's the same in your neck of the woods too. But you've got the 4th of July and lots of fireworks today to distract you from this extremely important piece of information.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have a book regarding the minting of coins from the 16th century. And
yeah.
Basically, you have to be very careful at who handles the money. Even back then, they're saying you have to know how to assay gold and silver for their purity. You have to watch carefully the people who make the plates for the stampers and all this stuff, because just a little bit of funny business and you're losing tons of money. And it's the people in charge of those things, the mints, that really do have the power, like you say. And by the way, I got some feedback that Radio Soapbox isn't blasting any audio at the moment. It's silent.
Oh, really? Let me go and have a look. Thanks for that. You're absolutely right. Don't know why. Let me just have a look now. There we are. We got some audio. Don't know why that happened. I forgot to check that one. I've got about 16 things to check at the beginning, and it should work automatically. Thanks for the heads up on that. So if you've been listening on Radio Soapbox for the last 43 minutes, you obviously haven't. I'm just checking the history. Oh, no, it ran for a while and then fell off. Okay, that's a bit strange, but never mind. Thanks for that, Patrick. What fun. I love the technical stuff. But yeah, anyway, going back to the monetary stuff, which I really can never get. I mean, there's a book called, I've got it on my shelf, I think it's called Good Money, and it's about button makers in England. I don't know if you're aware of this. It's by somebody called something Sefton. I think he's an American researcher. But he wrote about button makers in England in the 1700s who, because of their skill in making buttons, also managed to sort of translate that over into making lots of local currencies. There was a reason for this. Probably the Royal Mint was suffering at times or was not being particularly effective in getting coinage distributed. And so to stimulate exchange, that's what they did. These ideas, of course, are just not taught, not known. And it was highly effective, as are all these examples that we touch upon from here quite regularly about what happens when the money power is devolved, you could say, down to a local level. And I guess what we're involved with an election is confirming the centralization of power when, in fact, if we apply the by their fruits shall ye know them policy, which we should, there's very little to recommend an ever-enlarging central government unless, of course, you're a communist. And I would suggest that basically communism is the goal. That's really what wokeism is all about. It's what globalism is all about. And I think democracy, this little pantomime that's taking place today, where everybody's being G'd up for it, and it's all going to make a difference. Democracy is effectively slow burn communism. That's what it is. It's a way to sort of introduce it and to build it up, and slowly it morphs into ever more centralized control. And people now view the government as daddy. This has been going on for a long time. And I guess what are the left about? We want more power in the government to help poor people. And they fail to realize that the more power you put into government, the less help, effective and intelligent help you get, because it's not designed to do that. So, yeah. Got a little comment here from Exo in the thing. He says, if you're from my area of West Yorkshire, well, I may have been. I don't know what your area of West Yorkshire, but I was from West Yorkshire. He says, we have a group who clipped coins. Our local pub is called the Coiners. Yeah, coin clipping. And I think that refers back to what you were just talking about then, Patrick.
Yeah.
About these people clipping the coins, which is...
clipping the coins, mixing metals that, making alloys that take away the gold and the silver and put in more base metals, and then take the gold and silver and hide it away, that kind of thing. There are all sorts of clever ways of doing that if you're not careful.
Yeah.
And the monarch, back then, they advised the monarch to be especially cautious of people working in the mints, because that's what they do. There's the temptation to scrounge and clip and do all those nasty things that people do to cheat.
You think? Really? Are you suggesting that bankers are not necessarily honourable people historically, Patrick? Is that what you're kind of implying? Is that what you think?
Just people in general, I suppose. Yeah, it's like how do you keep track of it? Like, what's the best method? Because if it's decentralized to a point, yes, I guess, but at the same time, you have to be smart enough to notice that is going on locally if you have a local currency, because there's all the logistics of things if you're going to decentralize things, like you say.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you have a benevolent monarch, which I think could be possible. I think it's happened in the past. But
it has happened in the past. Yeah, it has happened in the past. I think it happened in the past when there were obviously a lot fewer of us around. And the reason I mentioned that is that, therefore, the lines of communication between the king and a peasant, even though it probably didn't take place much, if at all, were considerably shorter. When England only had a couple of million people in it, although they didn't have Tinternet and all this kind of stuff, there was a very strong, solid sort of local base for all people. And anybody that was found clipping coins would have been dealt with probably in a very rough way, and rightfully so. So you could see sort of thievery and interference with local coinage very rapidly, and people would sniff out that someone's clipping coins or passing duds or this, that, and the other, and they would be able to get on top of it. I mean, not instantly, and of course gangs would evolve all sorts of techniques for doing it. I mean, now that they've got all this control with AI, and now that we're going to make AI Steve the central banker, seriously, that would be better than what we've got. Can't we let AI Steve run it, please? You could say, of course they do say this, we're going to protect you, from all the monetary crime. But this is really an unbelievable laugh on their part, because they're at the epicenter of it. As we've mentioned here before, the dynamic of a protection racket is in all things governmental. We're here to protect you. We're going to protect your health. Really? Yeah. We're going to sort out the economy. Are you? Oh, yeah. We're going to make sure that other nations are put off going to war with us. Are you sure about that? Yeah. We're going to do all that kind of stuff. And, of course, the reverse ends up becoming true. They get so much power in that central thing. And, of course, that's now all corrupted, so that everybody's voting for these horrible actors, and they're very dull. When I was on with Eric, by the way, on Friday, no, not on Friday, I was on with him on Sunday, but on Friday here, and I think I mentioned this a bit earlier in the show, they've been having the leading candidates over here, rock up on a thing called Question Time with a some BBC bint called Fiona Bruce, and she's armed to the teeth with all these pre-vetted questions that they're going to grill them with. And on Friday, they had somebody from the Green Party on for the first 30 minutes, and then they had Nigel Farage, or Nigel Farage. I think I mentioned him last week. Yeah, that's right. And not that I'm not a supporter of him. He's out there to make it interesting. He's actually the only one that actually you would listen to, simply because he can sort of talk in an engaging way and knows how to address a crowd and comes across reasonably human. Stop laughing out there. Okay. But he does, in comparison to the others. This is not necessarily saying much. But he's been kind of thrown in to make it actually interesting. It's not interesting. And maybe their political party's got a chance of success. But his 30-minute stint was very revealing in the sense that the audience was completely preloaded with lefty, woke types. And all they wanted to talk to him about was how his party attracts racists. Why is it that your party attracts racists? Why are you a racist? Why is this a racist thing? There was no real talk about anything much that was sensible. And he couldn't get away from it. And I was reading in The Independent, one of the quality newspapers over here. Well, that's what they call it anyway. They said that during his 30-minute stint, he didn't get one round of applause for anything he said. Now, that was organized. He was brought in to be effectively sort of, hung out in public and made to look a bit of an idiot. He didn't do that. And I have to say, irrespective of whether you like him or not, and I suspect most people listening to this show are not particularly big fans, even though he's got a massive presence, certainly, having hobnobbed with Trump in the States and this, that, and the other. He did make a very good point about migration, which no one came back to him on this point. And so therefore, these conversations, this point he was raising, I think is definitely one that needs to be pursued. And what he said was, because there are a lot of these emoting type women in the audience that want to care for everybody in the world, right? Now, I don't knock that as a drive or a feeling, but it's got to be tempered with sort of logic and a calculator to see just how many people do you think we can actually help, and where? This is the big question. Where do you think we can help them? Anyway, one of the things that Farage was saying, he said, we've had an immigration policy for a long time. I'm with Enoch Powell, by the way, on this. The immigration policy is completely wrong, and it doesn't achieve anything. It's designed to, it has been designed to bring us to this idiotic situation that we're now in, where most actual indigenous people of these islands have been bullied into being fearful about speaking out about it because they see the sorts of things that come down from the courts. Think of, e.g., Sam Melia putting up a sticker saying it's okay to be white. But what Farage pointed out, he said, look, we used to run an immigration policy. This is up until the arrival of a chap called Tony Blair, if he is a chap. He used to be called Miranda, apparently, at university because he's, this way and that. And he said, we used to have a net migration policy of about 10,000 a year. Then, with the arrival of the Blair government, New Labour, which was effectively Labour taking on board the policies of the Conservative Party at the time, so that they had more appeal because they were looking like this ancient, fossilised, decrepit, prehistoric socialist institution, which is what they'd become, and were riven by all this sort of militant trade union infighting and all sorts of other things that could be rehandled another way, but by then it descended into a bit of a farce. So they took their policies on, got elected, and he immediately started to allow it to rise. And Farage pointed this out. But the question never came up you see, they're asking him questions, but really I think in an instance like this, these people that were trained to ask these preloaded questions weren't grilled, and they need to be grilled. One of the questions is, okay, you think people should come here? How many? So they'll give you a figure. Oh, I don't know, because it's been 1 million or something in the last year, or something ludicrous. The last 3 or 4 years, it's just absolutely nuts. But but it never works in principle. And yet again, it's the same thing that we were talking about, with regards to the money. Once they've got their foot in the door, how do you get it? You've got to get it out. You should never let it in the first place, but people get complacent. They lose sight of things. They sort of drift off. They do all this kind of stuff, So I think a question to these people that think it's racist to run an immigration policy and anybody can come here, the actual key question should be how many? Because whatever figure they say, I would say it's not high enough. Because they're not. It's to try and illustrate a point. If 10,000 can come, why are you denying the other 8 million that want to come? Why did you allow this 10,000 to come and not that 8 million? Let's get 8 million people a week arriving in Britain. Would that do it? In other words, we've got to exaggerate this, possibly with the hope, and it's a tenuous hope at that the penny might drop with these people, that the resources of any nation are not limitless, and that what they're suggesting doesn't solve the problem that they say they want to solve, which is the plight of these people. So, we've had all these people running away from war zones. Well, okay. How are they supposed to get back? Paul, yeah, sorry.
If we want to help the plight of these people, let's quit spending a bunch of money on hammers, screwdrivers, and toilet seats, and funneling money into black budgets, and actually work with these countries. Give them the technologies that they need to get their own energy, to grow their own food, to have clean water, to have a solid, workable education system, instead of opening our doors and importing them in here to put the strain on this country until the point that it becomes a third world country.
Yep.
Let's just use the resources of this country and fix theirs.
You and your pesky
ludicrous
logic, Paul. You'd never make a politician, would you?
I'm sorry. It's this damn soapbox.
I know. Well, it's right. It's right. Listen, a fantastic little comment here in the Rumble chat from EXO. Thank you for this. Apparently, this is with regards to Britain, the United Kingdom. Apparently, 1 in 32 people in this country have arrived here in the last 2 years. That means if our population is 64 million and it's greater than that, that means 2 million. That means 2 million people have arrived here. And guess what? They've got the vote. Haven't they? They've got the vote. I've banged on here before about the Byzantine solution. Byzantium, the longest lasting civilized empire we know of, about 1,300 years. It spluttered out about 700 years ago, 600 or 700 years ago, okay? Went on for a long time. Why? Because as Ezra Pound discovered, and as he championed, rightfully and accurately, of course, this makes me a right-wing extremist for saying this, but this is, that old Western logic running around again, causing trouble. Aliens were banned from occupying any positions of power in banking, law, education, and government. They were banned. They were barred. They couldn't get in. That's why it lasted so long, because a civilization is a reflection of race. Not because I say so, but because it is. So we're looking at what's happening to Western Europe. We're looking at what's happening to you in North America. And we're looking at what happens to people in Australia. And it's the same pattern everywhere, as people here probably know. Huge numbers of people are being enabled to come here. They're not. And this is a point that Farage make. And so this doesn't mean I support him. It's just that you must identify truth when anybody says it. Whether it actually leads to anything or not, is debatable. But he was saying the people that are coming here right now wouldn't have even qualified as migrants or refugees 20, 30 years ago, which means that someone has been adjusting the laxity laws to allow ever more people in. Why? Well, many people here will be familiar with this document written in the 1920s called the Coudenhove-Kalergi Plan, which sprang up on the internet about 4 or 5 years ago, maybe it's longer than that, by Count Coudenhove von Kalergi, who was race-mixed himself, who wrote this, basically kind of the agenda for the annihilation of racial homogeneity in the European countries. Why? I would suggest that most of their arguments, which are we've got to be nice to people, are just a cover for we don't care how nice we are to other people as long as we're really, really nasty towards the white Western Christian Europeans, because that's what's happening. And your logic, I'd stand by that completely. There's so many, this other argument, which I've mentioned before, I'm going to say it again. The Western nations are stealing the best of these people. They're stealing them. And what is irritating, and therefore it becomes a media issue. In the end, what we're talking about here is the media challenge. I'm saying a few things here which many people will be familiar with, and you may be familiar with even more and better and more effective arguments on this. But the main problem we have is we can't get them out to a sufficiently large enough audience and repeat it for a long enough period for it to sink in. It doesn't sink in. And what I was really interested in with the Farage thing on Friday, just gone, was the emotional condition of the people in the audience that were asking these insane questions. And of course, if I told them that they were insane, they'd want to kind of kill you emotionally, because there's something really complex taking place, or it appears to be complicated. These people want to come across as saints. And when people like you and I suggest a pragmatic way of dealing with this, which is maybe not the old singing and dancing version that they've got, where we've apparently got limitless resources and everybody's going to happy and you must get on with everybody, even though we know historically that this is almost impossible to do and is very dangerous, it might get them to think about things, but they're not even aware of these ideas. Anyway, look, we've been going for an hour. I've had a request for a song, and we are going to play it, but we're not going to play it right now because I wanted to play something I've played before because I think it's appropriate, really. I was thinking about this today. And this is a Van Morrison track, which I've played here before. It's called Western Man, and it really does sum up our plight and what's going on today. So we're going to take a 4 or 5 minute, 3.5 minute break. You're listening to Paul English Live here on WBN 324. We're here every Thursday for a couple of hours, 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. US Eastern, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. in the UK. I'm here with Paul and Patrick, and we'll be back after this brief and really rather wonderful song. And if you've got time to listen to the lyrics or even look them up, please do. Western Man by Van Morrison.
Western man has no plan since he became complacent. Stop believing in himself, let others steal his rewards. While he was dreaming, others were scheming, doing deals behind his back. Now Western man is adrift and under attack. What happened in between? Now there's no other bite of the cherry unless he's prepared to fight. Start on a new path to freedom, new path to freedom. The horse has bolted from the stables, the lunatics have taken over the farm. Caretakers have taken over the main house, clandestine meetings in the forest. Going back to the way it was, now it just seems be impossible. Western man has no plan. He stole that while he was dreaming. Cherry, unless he's prepared to fight. Start on your path to freedom. Horses bolted from the stables, the lunatics have taken over the farm. Caretakers have taken over the main building. governors have gone over the wall, clandestine meetings in the forest, not going back to the way it was. Western man has no plan since he became complacent. Stop believing in himself and let others steal his rewards while he was dreaming. 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 Others were scheming. Scheming while he was dreaming. Others were scheming while he was dreaming. Others were scheming while he was dreaming.
3-4 radio, South Africa.
Attention all listeners. Are you seeking uninterrupted access to WBN 324 Talk Radio despite incoming censorship hurdles? Well, it's a breeze. Just grab and download Opera Browser, then type in WBN324.zil. And stay tuned for unfiltered discussions around the clock. That's WBN324.zil.
The views, opinions and content of the show hosts and their guests appearing on the World Broadcasting Network are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of its owners, partners and other hosts or this network. Thank you for listening to WBN 324 Talk Radio.
Yeah, thanks for listening to the show, everyone. Welcome back. It's the 4th of July. We're here in the UK. We're having a wonderful general election. It's taking place right now. It's so very, very exciting, but we are trying to rip it to pieces because that's all it's really fit for. I've got Patrick and Paul here with me in the studio, but we also have been joined on the call line by Eric. Eric, can you hear me? And are you in the call-in studio?
Yes, I'm in the call-in studio. Can you hear me loud and clear?
You sound absolutely marvellous. Yeah, you sound marvellous. It's absolutely wonderful.
Thank you. Well, I've been taking my handsome tablets today, so,
Good.
But I saw a Labour thing poster up today. It says Labour for Change. Does that mean cross-dressing? Because Blair was caught in a public lavatory, wasn't he, with another bloke? And
yes.
He was known as Miranda at university. So will it be compulsory for us to wear, ladies' stuff? I don't know.
Well, you're saying that in jest, but now I'm getting really worried, Eric, because you might end up being a prophet, which would be a terrible thing, wouldn't it, if that's one of your prophecies? This is going to be a very, very bad thing.
I have a question.
Yeah. What was that, Paul?
Well,
I have a question. Wasn't that movie? Let's see. Prognostication. What was it? The Blair Witch Project. Isn't that pretty much what you guys wound up with?
Yeah, we did. Really? Yeah, good old Tony. So I'm not into cross-dressing myself, Eric. I don't think it's very good. Now we're moving into that terrible new agenda that they've been pushing for the last few years, which is very, very bad. And J.K. Rowling, bless her cotton socks, has been fantastic. Whatever you may think about her books or whatever, you may love them, I don't really know. There's lots of... We ought to probably do a Harry Potter special at some point about has it really been pushing Satanism into children or whatever. It's a very interesting sort of thing. But her attack upon... well, actually, it's not really an attack. Her defence of the rights of women in the face of this transgender illness, which is what it is. These people are ill. That would get, that's probably outrageous what I've just said. Is that extremist what I've just said? It's about to become that way anyway. But yes, she's done a fantastic job in defending the rights of women, although I'm still puzzled by what rights actually are, but that's just me personally. Yeah, what did you think of the song? I know I've played it before, but I don't know if you caught the lyrics. I just think I was listening again today in the car and I thought, that's spot on. I like the word complacency. I don't really like it, actually. In fact, I'm a bit complacent about it. But it was spot on, I thought. There really has become this lethargy, this sort of spiritual lethargy among so many of our people. Although there is also this energizing process, of which I hope this show is part of that, to get people, well, really to get a rocket up your arse, frankly, because now's as good a time to get anything up there and might as well be a rocket, if you know what I mean. So, yeah. Anyway, I mean, Eric, you're not thinking of becoming a cross-dresser or anything like that, are you? That would be a bit worrying.
I got a bit angry once when I accidentally put 2 legs down one trouser leg. So I don't know whether that would be cross-dressing, is it? I don't know.
Yeah.
Said a few words, first thing in the morning, and fell over. So is that what? I'm a very innocent young lad, as you know, and
yes.
I guess is that cross-dressing? You're very angry when you're getting dressed in the morning, But I have this problem I share with the listeners is that I dress as a man because I am a man. But I think that might be. I don't know whether I'll be sent to court for that because you're not allowed to say that now because there's no difference between male and female apparently now. We're all the same. We're all sort of homogenous or something.
That's what they would have us. That's what they would have us accept or internalize. I mean, this is part of the problem. This thing about resisting their agenda is a big problem. I feel because we end up becoming smothered, as it were, absorbing all the bilge that they're putting out and spend far too much time sort of running around in their intellectual mire, which is exactly the purpose of it. This is why more and more outrageous things keep coming out to absorb your attention about really stupid, very, very stupid things that nobody's interested in. And it's also indicative of this separation between our rulers, who they now really do fancy themselves as, and they're doing everything to ensure that they can maintain this ever-increasing rule over us, as opposed to being our servants. Which they would probably in public say, oh yes, we are your servants, but around the back of the bike sheds they're all sniggering and having another fag, as it were, a cigarette for you people in America, right? They're having another cigarette and doing all that kind of stuff. So it's, I mentioned this before, I'm personally not into resistance of their ideas. I am into the restoration of ours, though. And I think we are healthier when we do that. And it would break us out of, as Van Morrison says, our complacency and our dreaming of things. While, I mean, the lyrics are pretty spot on there, I thought, I never used to be a lyrics guy, but they're really important these days, So while we're sloping off and had a pretty comfy time of it, you have to admit, it's been pretty comfy up until really this century. I think this century's not been comfortable at all, and I'm talking about the whole 24 years of it, ever since it started off with 9/11. We've been permanently disturbed emotionally and intellectually, and no doubt that was needed. We actually needed that, and we've had the tools to find things out. But now the bad guys are using AI to just keep coining the cliche and all sorts of other things to effectively, keep pummeling our minds that they really do know what they're doing. I mean, it's a nonsense. I got another little clip for you all here as well. I came across this. Actually, who sent this in? Oh, this was forwarded from Britain First. I don't really mind where it came from, and it appeared on the Paul English chat Telegram group earlier today. It's about 45 seconds long. Let me just play this to you. Let's see if this comes across.
Do you know that out of the 3.3 million people who came, including the Indians and their dependents, who might have come on 6-month visas as students, so we're not talking about them having eligibility to a passport or that issue, they have a right to vote. 57 countries from the Commonwealth, plus Zimbabwe, that isn't even in the Commonwealth, plus Ireland, which we have a reciprocal agreement, can vote in our elections. These are people who, so out of that just last year's intake, it's 250,000 Indians, 250,000 Nigerians, 150,000 Pakistanis, Bangladeshis, and the list goes on.
Hey, that's great. All these lovely voters. Anybody aware of that one? Have you heard that one before?
I've heard similar.
If
I may.
The only way to...
You may. Oh, look, there's another voice coming in on the ethers. Where's this voice, Paul? Clue us in. This is really good. What's going on?
He's coming from Michigan.
Hi, person coming from
This is
Michigan.
Dave and the Thumb. How you guys doing?
We're having a good time. What's it like in Michigan?
I was just listening to George I was just listening to George Galloway, and
Yeah.
he was just talking about the Bangladeshis, and he's fighting for them over there. Is that right?
Probably. I trust you, and I trust your imagination more than I would the mainstream media. So I'll give you a yes. Yeah, he probably is doing that. What? Why? What? He's just fighting for them. Is he? They need fighting. What? The Bangladeshis that are living in the UK? Is that who he's fighting for?
Right. It sounded like he was trying to get a debate with Farage about, because I guess Farage is saying, now I'm just going by what I heard George say, and I don't hardly listen to him. I just catch him once in a while on a channel I pick up. But he said that Farage is not happy with the black and brown people because they're not native to England, and they're trying to make up all these laws and stuff for them. Or anyway, it's kind of funny what's going on here too. But Farage wouldn't debate him, and I didn't know George was in the Parliament there or something. I just thought he was some loudmouth, Scottish talk show host until I just heard him today. I guess it was his Wednesday show, and he had Scott Ritter on, who's an American. But anyway, I'll yield there and see what you got to say about all that.
A loud-mouthed man in our Parliament? Gosh, he'd want to have a word with you. I think you're right, though. Anybody out there emotionally attached to the future of George Galloway? The thing is, all of these guys are a bit like broken clocks. Most of the time they're wrong, and then every now and again they say something that's true, although what he's just said then. But you see, he's a lefty, I believe. All these labels and stuff, it's just nuts. There is this sort of, to me, a completely childish view about how you are supposed to help, if you can, people outside of your race and nation. I'm not saying that we shouldn't do that if we've got the capacity to do it, but it seems to me that right now the people that need the most help are the English and the Scots and the Welsh and the people of Northern Ireland and the people of Ireland, whose governments, and it's the same with you guys in North America, it's not a euphemism, are literally our enemy. They're literally waging war on us, using all the power centers of the civilization that we are supposed to have received in good order, and they're wrecking it because their allegiance, and Sir Keir Starmer is a prime example, their allegiance is to their globalist pals in the European Union or wherever they may hang out, and going to dinner parties with Klaus Schwab and all those morons that gather around him who say, we are the elite and we really know what we're doing. Well, they do know what they're doing. It's just that we don't want what they've got. They didn't ask us whether we want to buy the goods and services that they're putting on offer. And Galloway falls into that. I guess my rule of thumb is if they're not addressing the banking issue, if they don't bring it up at all, what's the point of bringing anything else up? Because all of these arguments that they had even with Farage were along the lines of, can we afford this and can we afford that? We don't know. We have no idea because nobody says, oh, here's the accounts book. This is what we could do. But I'm just coming back, Paul, to what you were saying a few minutes ago. We can help people. We can help them in a way that we would want to help them if they wanted that help. But it's not in a way that the globalist agenda wants these people helping. They are using these people to weaken us, and they don't give a fig about the welfare of these so-called migrants and refugees. They don't care. They're just being used as pawns on the chessboard to go to the next phase of the game where they're going to get checkmate on everybody, or at least that seems to be the idea. I don't know what anybody thinks about that, but that's generally my take on it.
What party is he in? Is he a Lib Dem?
It's brilliant. You're exactly right. And I yield.
Great. No, thanks. And what's happening in Michigan later? Have you got your collection of fireworks? Are you going to be loosing rockets off at vulnerable U.S. citizens everywhere and just going crazy? Is that what's going to be happening, or are you having a quiet 4th of July?
It's quiet, and I'm saving my rockets for the war. Thank you.
I think we all need to stock up on rockets, everybody. I think we all need to stock up on rockets.
Paul.
Yeah, Paul.
The only rockets we'll be launching is if Biden's aboard one of them. Um,
I read something
what
today.
is going
Did Biden?
on?
Just you mentioned Biden. I try and remember what you're going to say. I wanted to ask you a question. Is he stepping down? I heard that his. They used the word performance. I couldn't be bothered to watch it. Right? Apparently, it was like having a vegetable on stage when he did this so-called debate with Trump. We've got similar sort of piffle and nonsense taking place here, and apparently the great and the good of the Democratic Party were very concerned and want him to basically, go away. But I read somewhere today that he'd given it careful thought, which is obviously a lie because he can't think about anything, and he decided that he wasn't going to go away at all, and that he's going to lead the Democrats to victory, whatever the hell that might mean, and it will be hell, I suppose. So, do you know what's happening with him?
I mean, it's a shoo-in.
Yeah.
He's demented. And
it's a shoo-in. I mean, they've already imported enough votes that they figure that even if he was a complete blithering idiot instead of like a 3/4 of a blithering idiot, that he's going to get elected anyway. And the way it works in the United States is when you vote for a politician, when you vote for someone for president, you are, according to the national committees, you're voting for that party.
Right.
So if they have somebody out there they're running and people vote for him and he gets in, the national committee still has the ability to switch and replace it before the inauguration because you're voting for the party and not for the person.
And that's what the conventions are about.
Right.
Yeah.
They have a party convention every year or every 4 years for the president. And it's usually just within a few months of the actual presidential election that they hold the convention, and they have delegates that decide who their nominee is going to be. So they could have a list of super delegates that decide that they're going to run Kamala Harris instead of Biden or someone else. Like Gavin Newsom of California has been talked about.
Big Mike.
Big Mike.
Isn't Gavin Newsom top retard? Isn't he sort of one of the super crazies?
What's interesting about him is he was married to, I think it's Kimberly Guilfoyle, who's now fiance to Donald Trump Jr. So there's some inbreeding in politics going on here.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't she a Jew?
I don't know.
I have no idea.
I've heard for so long that she was a Jew, and then and Donald Trump Jr. was bedding her, and now they're saying she's a Catholic. So I don't know.
Well,
I mean, the mainstream's all over her being a Catholic.
Well,
and how great it is that she's with Junior.
Anybody can become a Catholic.
Oh.
But
I guess.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Well, it's thrilling. It's great. One thing that's always occurred to me about the terms for a U.S. president is 4 years. It seems to. It's always struck me, even when I was younger, that
two terms.
There's a permanent election cycle in the States. It's just permanent.
They're limited to
it's nonstop.
Well,
yeah,
they're limited to two terms, so a total of 8 years, and that was passed just after Roosevelt, who was our longest-serving president, FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who served 4 terms.
Yeah,
I think he died in office. So.
And he was a Jew.
Yeah, Rosenfeld. He was.
And his wife was the heiress to the dude who drugged up China and made all them hooked everybody on opium.
The Sassoon family. The Sassoon family. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Okay. Well, it's nice.
Amazing.
Also, didn't President Roosevelt, he's the guy as well, coming back to seigniorage and coinage, he's the guy that kindly took everybody's gold away from them in the early 1930s, didn't he?
Oh, they were happy about that, taking everybody off the gold standard.
Yeah, that's right. He just said,
And then
we're going to take all your gold for the
Americans
economy. Yeah.
The enemy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, of course, he's only got your best interests at heart,
Freedom
you
with
know,
the
because
Enemies
he's.
Act.
Yeah. Yeah, it's non-stop. A couple of comments here in the chat room here on Rumble.
Soapbox, by the way.
Pardon? Oh, okay. Why is
soapbox.
All right, thanks. Why is it doing that? Very odd. Stop doing that. Oh, it's back up again. I have no idea why it does that. We've still got a few technical things with Soapbox, so apologies if you're trying to become a regular listener. It's a bit arduous at times. We're trying to make it easy for you, but sometimes we fail a bit. Comment here. You know, we were just talking a bit about how we could help people from other nations. Exo writes, we can help a lot with just the £12 billion given to Zelensky. Is that what we've given? What did the US just give? 60 billion, was it, or something? Huh? Is that right?
Likely.
So we've given that dude over $100 billion since
Yeah.
all that started.
And you've probably given it to him.
And then he just bought his boyfriend.
Yep.
He just bought his boyfriend a $5 million Bugatti.
Wow, nice. That's good. Maybe I can get his boyfriend on the show here, and we'll find out a few
Yeah.
things. And because I wouldn't mind a Bugatti. That would be quite good. Yeah. So if we've given him and of course they've given Zelensky this money because he's such a powerful world leader, full of authority, insight, experience, and tremendous leadership qualities. I read that off the back of a cornflakes packet.
Well,
he's not. He's a complete joke. He's a joke.
He would be better. He would be better off just buying Bugattis than what they're actually doing with that money and buying weapons. That's the problem.
I think he would actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, what Ukraine needs is more Bugattis.
It almost sounds like you guys are surprised. I mean, all of this is for the purpose of destroying any prosperous country, to make the entire planet dirt poor so they can take care of everybody. They're giving the people they're giving the people that are coming over the border, they're giving them free phones, they're giving them the ability to vote, they're giving them jobs as law enforcement. That's really scary. They're paying for their housing, and they're giving them a debit card like with almost $3,000 a month on it. With what they're spending to support those people here, they could support 100 people where they're coming from. If they really, really were being benevolent, and if they really, really, really wanted to help the people that were escaping tyranny, why don't you get rid of the tyranny? So they want to stay
Wow,
there.
that's a brilliant idea.
It is. How do we do it, you see? Here's the thing. By the way, I've asked for people, if you've got any thoughts of policies, there's a few comments coming in on Rumble. You can call in, like Eric has done. Hi, Eric. Eric's still there. He's lurking. I think I can hear Eric changing clothes, so I didn't really want to ask.
Paul,
really,
I heard you could, Paul,
yeah.
I heard you could comply your way out of tyranny and vote your way out of tyranny. Have you heard about that?
No, I don't know whether you're right. Is that what they're trying to do here tonight? Let's vote our way out of tyranny. Can we do that? I don't know.
Social
You
credit
should.
score. Social credit score.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah, Patrick, over to you,
behave.
Patrick. What's your question, Patrick?
Okay, so I'm looking at the Telegraph's website on the general election poll tracker, and it looks like the Labor Party is at 40% as of yesterday, Conservatives 21, and then the Reform is 15. Now, it looks like the Reform Party is going to take the Conservatives over. They're going to intersect really soon. Now, what does that mean? That Nigel Farage is then more important than the conservative Sunak? Is that because what I mean what I mean, of course he is, but I'm just saying it's obvious that the conservatives are just going downhill. So
No, you don't.
But you're gonna have Nigel Farage versus Keir Starmer, all right? Those two will be in the limelight if that happens, where Sunak tanks it, and then you have these two. So tell me, because I understand that Farage has some history, especially with the BNP and Nick Griffin, where
Well, he
was
did.
specifically put in there to sabotage the British National Party.
Well, he was, and he did succeed in that. In fact, when he was on that show on Friday night, just gone, on the venerable BBC, You Can Trust Us, that lot. He made a big deal about this because during the first 10 or 15 minutes, there were these questions, like I've mentioned, like why did your party attract all these racists? And then they gave him all these names of these people that were standing as candidates that shouldn't have been standing, that had said naughty things. And maybe they were bad, stupid, dumb things. I don't know. I'm not here to sort of evaluate all that. I don't have all the detail. But he then, in his defense, said, look, I'm the guy that destroyed the BNP. I don't want any of this extremism. This word extremism, there isn't any extremism, is there? I'm not aware of it. I mean, the policies of the Conservative Party...
AI Steve will get rid of extremism.
AI Steve's going to get rid of anybody. Yeah, somebody wrote in here, actually, very good observation about AI Steve. I thought it was... This is from Rick in GA, Georgia, maybe? I don't know. Hi, Rick in GA. Could AI Steve be bribed with sex? It's a very good question. Cyber sex could be. All the AI bots could be basically corrupted with techno sexual corruption. They'll find a way of doing it. You won't be able to trust him very, very soon. They'll have to get some dirt on AI Steve. I don't know.
I have another question.
By the way, has anybody in the States... Sorry.
No. Okay. Paul first, then you, Eric. Just hold on, Eric. Okay. Yeah, Paul.
Sorry.
Okay. Would AI Steve be there to divert votes away from whoever they don't want the people to vote for?
Unlikely. He's in Brighton. So I think you see the thing about those polls with regards to the percentages, Patrick, is that in the end it doesn't mean too much because, I mean, it means something, but it never actually comes in terms of any hard change. And of course, they're always talking about change. I don't want any change. I want them kept in forever until they rot to death. I wouldn't let them out of the Houses of Parliament. This is me personally, so that we can see just how crap they are at everything. Every time they change, everybody's eyes then goes over to the next puppet. Ooh, it's all going to be better, and it's just exactly the same. But it doesn't change, irrespective of these things, because incumbent politicians are in seats that are like guaranteed for life. I'm serious. Where I live, it's a seasoned population, let's put it that way. In fact, the average age in this town is reckoned to be the second or third oldest in the whole of the UK. I think Harrogate in Yorkshire has got the highest age of anybody up there. And the older people they tend to vote Conservative. They just do. So the politician here has been the politician here ever since I got here, and he'll be here until he drops dead. And they will just vote for the Conservative Party no matter what. No matter what happens, even if they take us to war or anything, they're just going to keep doing it. It's like on autopilot. And that's what's going to happen. So whether it actually leads to any change out there, I don't know. But Farage destroying the BNP is bad. Andy Hitchcock interviewed Nick Griffin, the head of the BNP at the time, earlier in the week. And he's mentioned this before. And in fact, the treatment that it's ironic in a way, because Farage did have a negative effect on the BNP and is very proud of it, and like because they're all extremists, people that actually love their own country, this is extreme. Well, of course, it's become that within the political communication space. But Nick Griffin was on Question Time maybe about 10 years or so ago. Maybe it's 2009, 10 or 11. I can't get the exact date, but it's when the BNP was effectively at its peak at that time. And they did exactly the same thing to Nick Griffin when he got onto this show. The questions were preloaded. It was a preloaded audience. So you can't speak with any clarity or sense to an audience that's already prejudged everything that you've done and is basically demonstrating that this is not Question Time. And it's a badly named show. I've watched it on and off for years, and what passes for a question is nothing of the sort. It's basically political grandstanding with everybody pushing policies and nobody listening, hardly anybody listening at all. There's no sort of sensible acknowledgement that some of what the other side said could have some truth in it. So but that's the purpose of it. It's to keep this sort of the red side, the Labour side, and the blue side, and then you've got these other twitty sides like the green one and the yellow one and Reform. I don't know what colour they're going to be, and so on and so forth. And then people get drawn into that pantomime in that particular way, and it's tragically it's very effective. Unfortunately, it really is. It's very effective.
Just like voting.
Yep, it's like voting. Yeah, so and people have been out voting very hard today.
Same as the old boss.
So Eric wanted to say something.
Eric, let me bring you in. Sorry about that, Eric.
Oh, it's just a quick thing. I don't know if anybody in the States have heard of this, but Biden apparently he had a break-in in his house, and someone stole all his books, and he's particularly upset because he's just finished colouring one of them.
Yes.
That is a very funny joke, I don't think.
Eric, you can chime in with jokes about colouring books anytime you like. I'd just like to say we have another attendee in the call-in space. Showtime, you've joined us here. You're in with the show, and Eric, welcome to the show. If you care to unmute yourself. Hi, Showtime. Welcome to the show.
Hey there, guys. I just had hopefully you can hear me. I just had
we
a
can
good
hear
joke for the Americans. Nice. Yeah, today is basically Juneteenth for fat, middle-aged white men who love their black daughter's boyfriend. I think I kind
What
of
on earth does that mean?
Bit,
What's Juneteenth? What is Juneteenth? I'm a thicko. I've seen it around, but I don't know exactly what it means. What is Juneteenth? What does that mean?
It's a made-up holiday for blacks. Something to do with the Union freeing some slaves in Texas or something. And then just to be funny, because, it's probably a Jew who came up with that holiday, they called it Juneteenth, which is kind of like making fun of how black people talk, because they talk kind of like Southerners, but like more retarded versions because they're IQ.
Gosh. Okay.
And so that was my whole joke.
Got it. Okay.
What did you
Got
say?
it. I need to research
Go
more
get
on
him,
that.
Brent.
Yeah. That must be Stephen. Stephen, he's down in Georgia, Tennessee, down in that area.
Okay.
I believe his earlier appearance was as Fast Moving Cheese, and I think he should have kept that moniker.
All right, I've got you. Yeah, you maybe were fast. We've done the cheese bit already in the show, though, I'm afraid. We were talking about the cheeseheads and Cheeseland out in Wisconsin. So we've gone through the cheese phase of the show. I don't really want to bring cheese back into it if we can avoid it, possibly. I think that would be sensible. But, yeah.
What about the new autobiography? There's a new autobiography that talks all about the Biden presidency. It talks all about it, and the title of the book is Curious George Goes to Washington.
Oh, nice. Little comment here in Rumble from, you see these handles that you come up with. I'm supposed to read this stuff out. How can I say this? Don Dario Palermo. I don't know what that means. Maybe it means something. Is somebody from Missing Enoch Powell? Yeah. We're all kind of missing Enoch Powell. The man who was right back in 1968, and we're all sad that he was right. I mean, we're all sort of pleased that he was, but we're all sad that because he was ignored. I was actually, for our American audience, if you don't know who Enoch Powell was, he was the last. He basically stood up for the English and the British properly. He stood up for them and was, of course, destroyed by his own party for it. Everybody in England would have voted for him as Prime Minister, but the grandees of the Conservative Party, enthralled to the money power, let's just say this straight off, weren't going to allow him to gain power because he was a voice like our voice, which was not one of hating other people, but saying, look, the indigenous people of a nation, in this case England, come first. And of course that sounds awfully comical these days, because really it's crystal clear that we don't, or that the great and the good have decided that we're not to come first. But Powell was an amazing guy, very gifted intellectually in all sorts of ways. Sometimes, pilloried for things like that, for being a bit too bright. But he was certainly an honourable and decent man who had great intellectual honesty and far superior in every regard to the leader of the Conservative Party at the time, one Ted Heath, who was probably a kiddie fiddler extraordinaire of the foulest type and used to hang around with Jimmy Savile. Jimmy Savile being a man that Sir Keir Starmer did not prosecute or deal with properly, which is one of the reasons why he shouldn't be let anywhere near politics or power. But, of course, we're not in charge of that. The money power are, and they're appointing these perverts and useless bastards, sorry about that, over us. That's exactly what they're doing.
Well, and Starmer was also one of the most vocal for the lockdowns during the whole COVID era.
Yeah.
Wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. He's a toady. He's in their pockets. Somebody wrote earlier as well.
This is very bad news then. That
he's very bad news. And I think he's part of that... somebody wrote earlier, I'm sorry, I can't remember who wrote this, but thank you for putting this in. It's just come back to me now in the Rumble chat that he was part of the same sort of crew or generation as Blair. And Blair was completely their thing, their puppet. And Starmer is a similar sort of thing. I mean, he's so tedious, flat, boring, dull, exactly what they want. He's exactly what they want, and he's compliant, and he's up to his neck in all sorts of, I can't point anything out, but I distrust the guy completely. But then again, I distrust nearly all of them because, you see, it's this other point. Maybe people do go into politics with good intentions, but you've got to question their intellect at that point. Why would anybody that's reasonably intelligent look at politics as the way to transform the nation when there's a history of being incapable of doing that if you won't take on the money power? And none of them will. So what's the point of them? They're not going to take it on. So that's what makes it descend into this sort of farce all the time. By golly, this show's flying by. We're coming up to 20 to 10 here in the UK. In fact, we've just gone past 20 to 10. And I understand the first exit polls. I'll try and bring up the BBC website because, they can be trusted. They can probably on this because they're part of the lying apparatus of the mainstream media. We might be able to have a look at that and see exactly what's going on and see by how massive a margin Labour have swamped all this. Or by less of a margin than they are anticipating. Not that any of us expect things to change at all, except slowly and inexorably getting worse unless we can bring these people to book. That's kind of it. So, yeah. Show's not ended, by the way.
Is Eric still on?
Say that again.
Is Eric still with us?
Yeah, Eric's always there. Yeah. Eric, hi.
Yeah, I'm here.
Eric,
yes, I'm still here. Yes. Hello.
When's the last time, if ever, you voted, and who did you vote for, and why?
The last time I voted was over 14 years ago, and please forgive me for this. I have to confess my sins. It was Tony Blair, I'm afraid. I know it's sad, isn't it?
Ooh, I'm just lighting a cigarette here, Eric, and taking a very long drag on it and staring down at my feet and looking off and feeling slightly embarrassed for all of us.
Yes, no, actually, it must be over 14 years because it was 1990s, wasn't it?
96, wasn't it?
96, yeah. So it was about 1996 as well.
Don't you call them fags over there, Paul?
Yes, cigarettes are called fags. We call them fag. Having a fag. But it means several things. It means that. It also means... It's also got the same meaning that you have in the States, but we don't use it as much. We used to call them puffs instead, right? We're running right close up to the censorship laws now. I'm getting into trouble. And so there was that. But fags also comes from the public school world because the bullies, like Flashman, right, in Tom Brown's School Days, they would pick on the new boys and bully them and make them do all their errands and go and get things for them. Anything, apples, potatoes, this, that, and the other, cigarettes, whatever. And to go and get something was to go and fag something for someone. I'll go and that's also another use of the word over here. I'll go and fag that. I'll go and get it. It's not as common these days, but I certainly had it a lot when I was a kid. Did you hear that one, Eric?
Well, yes, and also I think that we should capitalise on the fact that Blair was caught in a public lavatory, and we should have a blue pack on the wall saying this is where Blair was caught with his trousers down with another man, and we could have Japanese tourists. They could have someone posing as Blair with his trousers down. You could have Japanese tourists having their photos taken. So, oh, along with Tony Blair with his trousers down. And they could have a themed cafe. We could capitalise on it. We could have Blair's faggots. I'm talking about a Victorian dish, of course.
Yes.
And you buy your fags in there. I think it would be a marvellous idea. So it needs an enterprising person to, go along with that. I think it would be it bring fantastic for tourism.
Eric, it's funny you mentioned that you have to confess your sins, because to me, voting is almost like confession, like the Catholic confession, where you go into the booth. The booth is like the confession booth.
Yeah.
And you write down who it is that you want to absolve you of your sins, and then you're absolved. Then you have no more responsibility politically and for the rest of the time until the next time you go to the election booth. That's the way it seems with most people. It's a way to make themselves feel better and not be involved politically at all. It just totally disempowers anybody to vote, in my opinion.
You're right. And I actually, I've got one question for any politician that knocks on my door, and I haven't had a politician knocking on my door at all. And I don't know of hardly anybody else that's had a politician knocking on their door. And one question is, what are you or your party prepared to do to abolish usury? And they're off your step quicker than a greyhound with a rocket up its backside. Because the last time I saw a politician, I asked him that. He said, I don't speak to racists. Now, what's that got to do with race? I don't know. He said, I don't speak to racists, and he run off. I thought, strange,
But isn't it the case that word, right, that attack of being called a racist is basically shorthand for shut up? Isn't that what it is?
Yes.
That's really all it is. Shut up.
Well, I suppose he probably has usury with the 7th month evangelists. Think about it. 7th month evangelists. You've got to think about that one.
Yeah.
Nothing rude. I'm not being anti-Semolina or anything like that, I'm keeping within our laws.
Well, he probably encountered someone else who used the word usury before and probably had a few things to say. Yeah, so that's likely why.
But there's only one party, just one political party, that advocated the outlawing usury, and they actually put a candidate up. I know the candidate. Had 4 candidates. It's a very small party, and it's the English Constitution Party, and they want a separate rule for England. And they're linked with Texas, believe it or not. They quite like Texas because apparently Texas has similar laws to England. And the chap who runs this party believes that the English, I'm not talking about the British, the English are being kicked down the most. And we've actually had more prejudice than any other race, according to him, which is quite interesting. Because
I think that that's a really interesting topic, because without playing a victim card, and I can hear people in other nations going, yeah, you Sassenachs or whatever, you've caused all the problems. Not the actual base English people, nor the base Irish or Scots or Welsh or the people of Northern Ireland. None of us, the normal people, the people who do most of the living and working and dying in these nations, are the people responsible at all for the crimes committed by their so-called leaders, which we can't seem to shake off. There is a parasite attached to us. There's no two ways about it. And it's managed to get hold like of the central nervous system of the power centers of all of our civilized countries. And, we've mentioned here before, in my view, there was no such thing as the British Empire. It didn't exist. There was an empire of the City of London, because that was the rapacious thing that was extracting all the profits and laying in all the wars and using British manpower to do that. This is not to say that we haven't had people that have made great contributions in the form of railways and this, that, and the other. But overall, you have to say, what was that rapid expansion, this colonialistic thing that took place? It's off the charts. I was watching something the other day about the amount of nations this country, Britain, has had a war with. It's preposterous. I don't think there's basically anywhere on earth that we haven't had a go at. And it was all because of extending this power. Now, you could maybe make some kind of plausible excuse to say, look, if it hadn't been the British, it would have been the French. of course, and we won't wish that on anybody. But actually, I don't believe that at all now. I just see that we've all been played off and are continuing to be played off one against the other. And of course, you feed the population. You say, oh, look, you're a member of the British Empire. Oh, aren't we? And of course, people get all fluffed up about this and think it's amazing, little realizing that they and their sons and their grandsons are the ones that are going to go off and get their heads blown off in a war, killing some poor bastard on the other side of the world who doesn't know anything about it. All for the benefit for usurers. Yeah. This is the driving force.
And it's all about geography, too. You'd think that race being a geographical thing just as much as it is any cultural. And the city of London is such a key location for you with the river running through it. And just historically, to trade, you had to go through that area. And if you can take back London, get rid of the usury out of it, you would have the problem solved. And there was a party down in South Africa that Stephen Mitford Goodson helped to form, which was the State Bank and Anti-Usury Party. And he was making some headway from what I've read about it. And there were he was getting people involved in it that you probably wouldn't have considered to be, involved in a movement like that. But they were. And it wasn't just, the Afrikaners. It was people also that were, the people that looked like Mandela, but not quite, weren't commies. So you need something like that. You need something where you could take and make, because usury is something that kind of transcends races. I think if every race understood what usury was, they would want to do something about it within their own race.
Yes.
And especially, the poorer races. Once they find out how it's done, where it happens, and then how it causes wars to occur, because that's essentially what happens. Is these bankers demand too much usury, too much interest on loans that they give out through organizations like the IMF and the World Bank, and they can't pay them back. So then the resources and the labor force are demanded to work for those bankers, and when they refuse to do so, then they send in the guns and the bombs, and it's quite tragic. And if you could break that, and put those,
I agree with everything you said. Absolutely right. And I think, it's not that it's funny with political parties, because there immediately arises an expectation that they're supposed to get into power and do things. But there's something about laying the groundwork. We're talking about things here which maybe many of the listeners on Rumble are familiar with. If you're on WBN 324 and a regular radio listener, maybe you've not heard these things before. I don't know. Maybe you have. It's difficult to tell from a distance and sort of just doing the audio side of things. But we need to find a way to build that up as a political movement. And I'm using the word politics, Patrick, with regards to your observation that you shared from Aristotle, which is that politics is whatever you contemplate. Well, Eric, I know, contemplates usury a lot. I do. I contemplate the history of central banking a lot. And from it, I would say to anybody, if you want to study history, study banking. And you'll find that it leaks into everything, every activity, every event, every violent event, every conflict. Its root goes back to the bankers, because it couldn't go anywhere else, because normal people don't want to wage war on people. We've created all these things, all this technology, advanced farming techniques to really make the earth thrive much more effectively and to distribute the produce from land, the food, and all this kind of stuff. We've done a brilliant, brilliant job, but the usurers can't have us benefit from the things that we've contributed, because that leads to their removal. That's what we're talking about. It seems to me in great part, they must be in a position to maintain their protection racket. Otherwise, they might have to do something else. And that's not even a thought that could occur to them. You and I couldn't persuade them or show them that they would be better off. It's just irrelevant conversation. It's not going to happen. They're a long line of inbreds, basically, for thousands of years that have operated like this. They will not change. They will not change. But the idea of us getting behind things like a movement to get people clear about money and to parcel this up is to me personally, it's much more stimulating, because then we're not resisting. We're saying we do have a view of a better world, all I would say is it won't be problem free, but it would have a lot less problems than this. There would be much less error in it. And also the transparency that we need to get would be stronger. But you also have to look at the race issue. It's only an issue, as I've said before, because people mix them together in huge quantities on the same bit of real estate intentionally to divide them. And I think I think Goodson actually talks about this in his book. I keep going back to that book regularly since I reread it a couple of months back. He was talking that every dictatorship gains its strength by having a mixed race population. That's how it rises to power. That's how it really gets strength. There's a few exceptions to that. And of course, they've been bombed, as we well know, right? Because they get out of hand from a usury point of view. They don't like this. But it's definitely the thing to get across. So we've got, right now, everybody's voting for politicians today in this land, and probably not one of them, or very few of them, have got any idea of this issue, as we've mentioned before. They don't want to admit that the bank are in charge, although Liz Truss did. But she did it when she was out of power and had been sacked. And yet it's a key thing. It's like, it's absolutely bizarre from us applying logic and decency, but we're not dealing with logical, decent people. We're dealing with people that want power, and they'll do anything to retain it. Most of the reasoning, I guess, behind that is because many of them have come into it through a corrupted path. Someone has got something on them, and I'd say that's for probably 99% of the political class. That's why they're dysfunctional. They really are.
I think people vote for whoever they think will bring them the most happiness. And I think that's an underlooked thing, is the happiness of the people and what it depends on politically. And that's kind of why they have to change up definitions of things to where happiness then becomes a sin that cries out to heaven for vengeance. It gets mixed up with that word, the English word for happy. And, we get all of these social things that are just disgusting, that we don't want any business in, and that don't make us happy. That make it's the way I look at it is, when you go to vote, or if you don't vote, does it make you more happy not to vote? And to me, it does. Looking at the choices of people we have here in America, and if I were over there, I would be very happy not to vote, because it's just like, none of those people make me feel good. They don't make me feel good about the future that they have envisioned for the people around them.
No.
In Australia, though, it's illegal not to vote. You get fined if you don't vote, and they've had it for years. Yeah.
Well, that needs to go.
Well, as a friend, somebody I know that just pays the fine each time. I don't think it's very much, but you get fined. And people, what they do, they just go in and just spoil the ballot paper, just walk away. But now they've got postal voting, which is the biggest fiddle out. People just don't bother. But really, going back to usury, now Nick Griffin would be able to explain this better, but I did hear on one of the shows that he was on that his party had that in their manifesto. And he got a knock on the door one day from the, shall we say, the dark-suited brigade. And they said, drop that from your manifesto or we'll destroy you and your party. And the rest is history.
Wow.
And,
time, Paul, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I know it's time. So we're gonna end this part of the show. You've been listening to Paul English Live here on WBN 324 for the last couple of hours. We're just coming to the end of our slot. We close out here at 10 o'clock on WBN. That's 5 p.m. US Eastern. The show will carry on, though, because we're going to probably spend a little bit of time looking at the UK polling results. So hang on to your hats. We've got a song to play after the break. We'll just wind down here over the last minute. Thanks, everybody who's been here up for now, and we're going to carry on. If you want to keep on listening, go to paulenglishlive.com. You'll find links over to the Rumble channel, which is where most of the chat is taking place. And a shout out to everybody who's been putting some fantastic stuff into the chat. Thank you all for that so far. But we're going to carry on a little bit more. We'll round out with this little song, and then we'll be carrying on. And we are clear from WBN. Great. Thanks, WBN, for hosting us. And we're still here rocking on Rumble. We're still going out on radiosoapbox.com. I'm here with a whole slew of reprobates. We've got Paul B and Patrick C. Hi, guys, who are here regulars and fantastic. Yep, cool. And we're also joined on the call-in line by Showtime, who was Fast Cheese at some point, and Eric von Essex, who's here as a good old... managed to say a few things in between changing his clothes, which is tremendous. What we're going to do now is I'm also going to run a little song. This is a complete change of pace, right? There's a total change of pace. So give you all a little break for a few minutes, then we'll come back in. This is called Forbidden Colours. And we got a 400. Paul, don't have your nose put out. Somebody wrote into the chat right at the beginning. They said, would you play this? It's by Sakamoto, Ryuichi Sakamoto. I think you'll recognize it. I think it was in some war film, actually. It's a beautiful piece of music. It's an instrumental, and this is in 432 hertz. So somebody had already done a version of that. We're going to play this. It runs for about 4.5 minutes. So powder your nose, everybody, and get ready. And then we'll be back in about 4 minutes' time. Here we go. And that was Forbidden Colors by Ryuichi Sakamoto. Suggested early on in the chat, and I don't have a name, but brilliant, fantastic. I've heard that a long time ago, and it's from the film. I had to look it up because while we were playing Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence, which was made, it says it's a 1983 song. How about that? So I don't know if the film came out in 1983, but there we go. Anyway, that was a beautiful interlude, a complete change of pace, just to remind us that there is still beauty in the world, although you won't find any of it in the UK general election or in the upcoming US general election. Anyway, gentlemen, you're all unmuted and we're back on. We've got Eric in the call-in room, and we've got Patrick and Paul, and we're back here on the show for running on. I wanted to ask you, Eric, if you could make a policy, what would your policy be? I'll put you in charge. I see on the BBC exit polls that it looks like you are going to win this general election. I'm just making this up, of course. Yes?
Excellent.
Yeah, it says
and I'm still changing my clothes.
Fantastic. It says the Fockham Hall party is leading by landslide for Eric von Essex and the Fockham Hallists, it says here. And I just wondered what one of your primary policies would be, Eric, if you finally do, land the victory here.
Every politician that has served in government that is still alive, going way back, charged with treason and arrested. Because,
so you're going for the popular vote, are you? You're going for the popular vote,
yes.
Yeah.
And of course, usury. Of course, we'll then go for the City of London and sort that out and abolish usury. And we can tell the usurers where they can shove their money. And I'd actually introduce a dual currency. So we'll have an inland currency and an international currency. And that would not be, there would be, inflation would go down and also paid repatriation. And that would be very polite. We'd be very nice to people. People wouldn't have anything to worry about, but it would cost a fortune. But if people wanted to go back to their own lands and make their lands good, that would be, we could have something like the transfer agreement where people can go back and they've got an education and we'll assist them back. And it'll all be very British and very smart, very nice, very polite. And I think it would work. And I think this country would prosper again.
So how do I sign up to become, a party member of the Fockham Hall party?
You get your wallet out and you then slap into my hand. About
now we're back to proper politics. That's right. Now I'm comfy now.
And that's it, you see. And, someone accused my local council of honesty. And what a slur, because my council, I'll defend them on this, they work tirelessly to maintain the level of corruption that people expect. So, that's a terrible slur against councillors, saying that they're honest, isn't it? I mean, what are councillors for?
I know.
But no, what you were saying about usury and things like that, I was speaking to somebody who had a very good idea, and they said that to stop parties being infiltrated, you have groups of three. So you have three people who you can trust, and they join with another three people. So that makes six. But you're like independent units which form one party, so that if the powers that be try to infiltrate, it'll be extremely difficult because we're all working in groups of three, which is quite interesting.
It is. There's been documents written in the States about leaderless resistance and this cellular approach. We've got to find a way of galvanizing. But I suppose the galvanizers that'd be people like you and me, possibly, if we were able to galvanize ourselves and others. They would be got at and stuff. They don't want any of that galvanizing of people taking place. That makes things very difficult for them. And, of course, we live in a place which is literally compartmentalized in terms of all these control systems to disturb little groups to make sure they don't gain any traction right at the start. But we have to do something. I like your policies. I mean, I've mentioned here before, what I'm interested in is trying to find out, I'm going to use the word fag again, right, is how to get the fag packet presentation. So this is shorthand in the UK vernacular. If you've got a pen, people would sometimes scribble down the idea on the back of a fag packet. That is a packet of cigarettes, right? Which is not very big. The idea is, can you get it on a fag packet to communicate and get this idea across? And it's this kind of really simple, direct stuff that we need. And I got to find a way of sort of, abbreviating these things. We all do, and getting pithy language really working for us. And we've got plenty of it to use. But I want people of England to own the bank. That's what it's ownership of the bank. Now, it doesn't mean much on itself. I accept all that. You've got to look at how it's going to operate. But the main problem, it seems to me, is there are people who are owners, and it's not us. And it needs to be us. If we are a nation that is a tribe of people of the same race with a shared and received history, culture, and language, and we are, then the first thing at the top of the list for the organizing principle of pragmatic life, I'm not talking about the spiritual realm here, but this would benefit, that would definitely benefit from it, is that we must be in charge of, and we must all own the bank. That means little babies that get born today get a certificate of ownership in the bank for life, and it's non-transferable, and you get it, and all the private banks would be subsumed over, say, a 10 or 20-year period, because they'd scream like mad, oh, we can't make any money. No, you don't need to make any money. We're making wealth. Very different idea. And they'd have to be subsumed into the national bank. And there's nothing wrong with nationalisation if it's structured correctly. We've got so many private industries wrecking everything now. I'm not against the capitalist spirit and everything, but you see, it's kind of a game that's way past its sell-by date. We can't actually implement the problems that we've solved because people go, no, I've got to keep making money out of this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep producing crappy plastic goods that break down every 3 years so that you have to buy a replacement. It's mad. There's a kind of economic disease in the system because people go, we must make a profit. They're always saying, we're going to grow the economy. I've heard Sunak say, well, the economy is growing. What are you talking about? It's just nonsense. Go and tell that to these people that are sleeping in street doorways and all this other stuff. It's nonsense. It's an absolute nonsense, all that kind of stuff.
With you. And I'll tell you something else, also, to put a lot of emphasis on the family unit and avoid all this pride nonsense, all this colourful stuff on people showing off their sexuality. I'd be I'm very sort of, I wouldn't say, what would the word be? It's not right wing. It's prudish. I think we need to go back to the sort of early 60s or 50s. Not too far, but what I mean to say is,
can't we go back to the 1870s, Eric? I really want to go back there. I want it. I want restraint. I absolutely.
A man is a man.
Yep.
That's right. A man is a man. A woman is a woman, and that's it. And
I've got a fantastic quote, though. Patrick, let me just get this, and then please don't forget your question. Yeah. I've got a fantastic, this was sent to me by a good friend the other day, one of these little memes. It's a quote from Saint Elizabeth Ann Seton. I don't know who she is. I haven't even had the time to look her up. But
First American saint.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Listen to this. This absolutely nails it. Disorder in the society is the result of disorder in the family. And the family is it. The family is absolutely bad families, bad civilization, bad nation. Good, healthy families and all the moral values and ethical values that go with that. The Victorian ones, I mean it. I'm dead serious. I'm not saying that Victorian times were great. If you were a peasant, you were treated like shit. That's what Dickens talked about, right? All this stuff. Because you've got these aggressive capitalists moving people off the land into these cities and then they're living like pigs. It's horrific. But the family is it. It's absolutely it. And none of these parties, have they mentioned it once? No. Because all they ever talk about is the economy, which they can't control because they're not in charge of the bank, because they take their orders from the bank, and the bank is a bunch of spivs. Hello?
Paul, what's interesting
Patrick,
about her, it's very interesting you brought up her, because her husband worked with Alexander Hamilton, and she saw the inside of what was going on at the time, and she was against it. She was working with the poor and downtrodden. So yeah, that makes sense. I just wanted to make a comment about what Eric was talking about. Did you know that the Italian poet Dante, in his poem The Inferno, puts usurers and sodomites in the same circle of hell, in the seventh circle of hell? So, they go hand in hand. It's just the way it is.
They do.
Based.
Yeah, they do. They absolutely do.
They end up. You take something that should be fertile and you make it infertile, which is sodomy, or you take something that should be infertile and you try to make it fertile, which is usury. You put 2 coins in a
Mhm.
drawer, and you don't come out with more coins, but you take 2 mice and you put them in a drawer, and you walk around later,
Yep. And you might have a lot of mice. Yeah, and then it's mice sandwiches for a month or whatever it is you do with them. Yeah. But it's interesting as well that you talk about that, about procreation with creatures, because the word capital comes from cows and capita. And it was heads of cows. That's what it was. And why would you view cow? Because they produce so much stuff, don't they? They produce milk. And then we get your neck of the woods, Cheeseland, right? No cows, no Wisconsin, nothing. No cheddar cheese. Forget all that. Of course, they're waging a war now on cow farts or something, right? Because they're unwell. But the family is absolutely it. And, I put that as the pivot point. And why would we want to get rid of usury? Because money lending destroys families. And I'd close down all the gambling establishments. I'd shut it down. And you go, well, it'll all go underground. Great. It'll go underground then. But it's not going to occur on the high street. You get all these adverts saying how to deal with gambling addiction. Yeah, it's simple. Just shut down all the bookies. Shut it down. Of course, we get killed for that. The horse racing industry in this country is just colossal. It's absolutely huge. And I'm not against people.
Are huge here.
Yeah, it's just completely off the charts. So either that or you put some kind of colossal tax on the whole thing, which of course then means you've got bribery going on, because human beings, when they get in contact with large amounts of money floating around in bank accounts, it somehow starts to go missing. Have you noticed that? Oh, we don't know what happened to that. What was that guy in your neck of the woods at 9/11? I've forgotten. I see his face now. The government guy, where they'd mislaid $2 trillion. Donald Rumsfeld.
Oh, Rumsfeld.
Yeah.
Yes.
We don't know what's happened to it. We've kind of lost it. What, $2 trillion? Yeah, sorry about that. Misplaced it somewhere in the office. It's.
I tell you another policy, though. Excuse me, chime me in here, Paul. But another policy is to ban Freemasonry for public servants. So if you want to be a public servant, you cannot be a Freemason. If someone wants to go to the Dog and Doug pub and roll up their trouser leg and do funny.
What, like you were doing a bit earlier in the show?
I was doing a bit earlier in the show, yes. Dob, dib. That's what the Scouts did and all that. That's entirely up to them. But if they're a public servant, that should be illegal.
So no due paying
conflict of interest.
Freemasons.
Anyone
who pays dues to a Masonic lodge is disqualified.
Somebody sent me a really good clip on Freemasonry. I know we've talked about Freemasonry. It was a very good clip about the relationship of Freemasonry as a protective ring against, let's call it the monarch or the power center, right? And a good analogy with the chessboard. Okay, so we are often referred to as pawns, which is correct. And then you've got rooks. Now, the rooks represent the police force. I quite liked all this. It made it quite memorable in the sense that a new policeman is called a rookie. Yeah. Now, I don't know why they are called a rookie, but maybe that's a Masonic thing that's come down. Then we've got all the lords and ladies. We've got the knights, haven't we, that bounce around, protecting the king and the queen, supposedly. We've got bishops in charge of the religion to constrain people's genuine thirst for a spiritual life, and they basically organize it for you, all for your own good, of course, and you get all those squabbles springing up around that. It was very interesting, and the thrust of this little 10-minute thing, it's a bit too long to play in the show actually, was that all these protective rings are in society, and that's why there are lodges everywhere doing this kind of stuff. I'm averse to the whole concept or the whole thought of Freemasonry for the simple reason that why do you need a covert organization that people have to be secret about? We don't like it. I'm trying to echo JFK here, when he said we are basically averse to secret societies and dark dealings in the night. And of course, that's where they spring up from. So you've got, in this country, we've got the judiciary. It's absolutely riddled with them. We bumped into someone, I haven't seen him recently, I hope he comes out again to our meetings, a chap who had been a lawyer or a barrister most of his life, and when he graduated, about 1967, he'd been studying with this other chap who said, well, now that we're through, I think it's about time I invited you to join my lodge. And I remember him telling us this. He said, I took about 30 seconds to think about it. He said, no, I don't think I will, but thank you very much for the offer. And he had a good life and it wasn't interfered with, but he'd been in certain court cases where certain things had been said between prosecution counsel and judge, or whatever it was, or the defense probably, and the judge, where the sentences passed upon certain people were way, way less than they ought to have been, and he knew this. And no doubt his career could have been greased and oiled in a more, stratospheric way. Not that he did badly. I mean, I don't know. I'm not trying to speak for the guy, but I liked him a lot.
Those are the worst kind of judges, the ones that take bribes.
Well,
those have to be.
They have to be. In what way? Yeah. It's so. Aren't we supposed to have juries? I mean, that's another thing. What about truly the application of juries for everyone? I really think jury duty should be something that we should all be participating in. Now you go, well, that'd be really arduous, and we couldn't organise. Yeah, we could. We could organise anything we want because we'd have everything else sorted out because there wouldn't be any usury floating around. Okay.
Well, there's a separation of church and state, which I find very odd. And these judges should be informed by God's law and the ministers of God, or the church leaders. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, they try and usurp that authority. And who is it that officiates marriages? Well, it's these judges. It's kind of, a reversal of roles there, I think.
Yes.
I mean, I know it's a reversal of roles. So there definitely needs to be less separation of church and state and more of God's law being enforced rather than these little occult, courts.
We've got a massive communications challenge with that, but I completely agree with you. I don't think there is a separation of church and state, really, in the true definitions of those words. As far as I understand, what the original intention or meaning of the word church is a gathering of the elders to discuss the affairs of state, i.e. the condition of our lives, i.e. the things that we're contemplating, i.e. the value systems that are being employed, i.e. the value systems that are organized under the commandments, which are laws not made up by men, but directly address our nature, the way that we actually are. They work for us at a fundamental level. I would get rid of all female priests. Can't have them. All of this thing about so-called same-sex marriage, I would simply make them all null and void overnight. You never ever got married. You can't do it. It's impossible. It's a nonsense. You can't do it.
You can't have a society without children, and it has no point.
That's right.
Other than
that's right. And everything that we're doing here, we're all of us here. I don't care what. Within 100 years, everybody listening to this show is going to be dead. Some of us well before that. I'm not expecting to live another 100 years. Are you, Eric? You're expecting another 100 on your?
Oh yeah, I'm expecting 100. Yeah, I'm just a young lad here.
Oh right, okay. Well, maybe I do need to join. Come over to Fockham Hall and breathe some of the air that you're breathing over there. It obviously sounds as though it's got life-giving properties. But we're not going to be around, are we? Now that's been the same for everyone. So who is going to be around, and what condition are they going to be in, and what's the point of acquiring all this knowledge and information, at least as best as we can, and keep improving it and refining it and removing error as we go, if we don't have anybody to hand it down to? And it seems to me that, part of this globalization process is the destruction of this. And we know that one of the tenets of the of international communism is the destruction of the family, something that we've all been undergoing all of our lives, particularly since the end of World War II. There's been an absolute onslaught on it in terms of promiscuity, the promotion of porn, all of these things that make us dysfunctional and reduce and remove real happiness, something that many people possibly are never going to experience in their life. That sort of contented feeling of being with the ones that you love in a safe and strong space where you're building things together. I know it sounds like a storybook, but really it is meant to be like that. That's what we're yearning for, and that's why I guess we're in rightful anger about these people that are literally destroying everything that we want to build. We're just not interested in any of their crap, useless ideas, and the thieving way that they're going about acquiring wealth and power for themselves at our expense. We have to stop them. They have to be stopped.
There is a theory, though, that. Sorry, I've chimed in then after you. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
We're battling with each other. Now, what I was going to say is there is a theory that that before the Industrial Revolution, only the fittest and the strongest survived. And according to Professor Edward Dutton, that we reached our peak in skills or IQ in 1870, and we've been declining since then. Now, when you look at it, Karl Marx, he was around, what was it, 1840s, 1850s, 60s, around about that time.
Mm-hmm.
He wouldn't have survived childbirth because what happened after the Industrial Revolution, hygiene improved, and of course, more people survived childbirth. And I'm not advocating the strongest of the fittest and all that type of thing, but what I'm looking at is this theory that these mutants were born who wouldn't have normally been born, and that's when communism was born. And what we're getting now, we're getting more and more people that are mutants, because I believe that communism is a mental illness. I really do. They think completely different. They're completely bonkers, and it's all theoretical. They're trying to take over our farms now. For example, look at what happened in the Soviet Union when the scientists tried to tell farmers how to farm. Mass starvation. And that's the idea that they've got now.
Yes.
So I think there may be something in that theory that we've now got mutants that are coming along that wouldn't have survived childbirth before the Industrial Revolution. But what I strongly believe in is before somebody I don't believe in leaders either, but before somebody gets into an important position, they've got to have a brain scan to see whether they're a psychopath, because you can find out whether a person's a psychopath or not from a brain scan. And that should be for all to see. And if that person's a psycho, they can't take that senior position. I think that would make for a better world.
I think you're right. How would we invite people in for the scan? It's everything you say is absolutely it's spot. I mean, communism is a mental disease. I mean, maybe we could have it classified as such. We'd have to build very large sanatoriums. Oh, hang on, they've been building them for us. There are all these massive prison centers that they've been building, these FEMA camps in the States, so they can all go there. They're the ones that design these things, and they're the ones that need to go in. The thing I find, all of their sentences are basically half cocked and half finished. They don't keep drilling down to the result of all these wonderful things that they want to do. And utopians are terrifying people, because what they're saying is, hey, I'm a bloke or a blokess. I don't even know how my body works. I actually don't even really know what I am. I've got a few guesses, but I certainly know how to organise and run your life. Really? Yeah. I actually know better than nature. You do? Yeah, I do. Yeah. And if you disagree with that, I'm going to kill you. That's really the part of it. We're going to make everything wonderful, and people that don't want things to be wonderful, we're going to kill you. And you're going, hang on, just a minute. Don't you see there's a bit of a disconnect between making this great place and killing it? No. And the history of communism, i.e. bloody do-gooders, which is what they are, is literally rivers of blood. It's seas of it. It just doesn't stop. And look at what they're angling for now. And I think the root of it is they will not bend the knee to God. Whatever you may think by that, they go, we know best. And anybody that starts talking like that, you're dealing with someone who's lost it. They're so full of their, and they've got a lot of evidence to suggest that they're better out there. They go to all the best universities. They go, look, I've got an IQ of 142. Yeah, but you can't tie your shoelaces, mate. There's really basic things that they're clueless about, and they now can only operate really with a bevy of slaves. You know, they have to have this lifestyle, and they're terrified of losing that, I think, on some level. And we have to we've just got to return to the law. If a church, as I believe it is a gathering of the elders to discuss the affairs of state, what I'd like to inform you is that you might think you've been participating in a radio show, but you've not. This is a church right now. We are gathered here, right? We might not be physically in the same room. And I think this whole thing with churches, with a lot of the singing and all that kind of stuff, I'm not against that kind of stuff, but it's taken over from the root, gritty truth of the whole thing. If we don't get the basics sorted out, if we don't build the foundations right, the building falls down. It falls down. And I often feel that, you know, like the thing with these political parties, it's a bit like just changing the curtains. Oh, well, we've had blue curtains for 14 years. It's time to have some red ones now. It's going to make everything different. And people like us are saying, no, the building that you're putting the curtains up, it's crap. It's useless. We don't even want to live in this space with you red curtain people and you blue curtain people. And speaking of that, and this is a terrible segue, let's go and have a look at the BBC News and what they're predicting with the election poll results. We're at 10:30 here in the UK, so I've just gone over to the BBC News site. Yep.
Libs win.
And it says this, exit poll, most predicted seats. So an exit poll, yeah, they have a chat with the people coming out of the voting booth and say, who do you vote for then? You go, I'm not telling, or whatever it is, They get some data and it's generally pretty accurate. So what they are predicting is a Labour landslide is predicted. So it will be Starmageddon. That bespectacled dullard is going to get in. And they need 326 seats for a majority. The projection is that they're going to get 410. We will see. Okay. And the problem with that is that they would outnumber all the other parties put together and could then run roughshod and introduce more globalist wokeness, which I suspect will be part of Starmer's remit. That's what he will be told to do.
He's all for war in Ukraine?
He'll be for whatever he's told to be for.
Well, I just wonder the motives behind calling the election to begin with. What was, because if they want a war and they get someone who's in there that's ready to go to war, it's apparent that that's what the purpose of it is. Or what was his... I guess I don't know much about this Starmer character.
I don't think you're the lesser for not knowing much about it, Patrick. I think even more highly of you. I don't think it's worth knowing. I know that they'd said that, what was it? Andrew Bridgen, the MP, who's been saying certain things which appear to be truthful. We still don't know about all this kind of stuff, but he comes across quite well. I quite like him. He was saying that Sunak had told the higher-ups that he didn't want to be a wartime president, a wartime prime minister, I should say. So the idea that this is if this develops, that there is a genuine war to be had, is purely to wipe us out. That's all it's for.
No.
It's just to wipe the little people out on all the sides, whilst pretending them you need to go and fight the Russians. No, we don't. I quite like Russians. I don't live with them, and they're free to do what they like. It's their country, and they can do what they like. Why would I dislike Russians? What's it got to do with anything? It's to do with the fact that they're going to lose control. They want even more because they're hey-ho.
Well, there's this thing called the authoritarian personality that Theodore Adorno came up with. It wasn't just him, but basically getting rid of the patriarchy and making it so that males lack any sort of authoritarian voice in matters of having to do with their lives day to day. And anything that discredits that authority is basically going to be to our detriment, because we need men. And if they're going to send men off to die, that's just going to make our society all that much worse than it is now. And you're right.
We have another attendee who's called in. Sussex man, welcome to the show. How are you this fine summer evening?
Very well, Paul. Yeah.
Good to have you
Can
here.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I guess you're a little bit late because you must have been out voting, right?
No. Actually, I had. I was just dozing off this afternoon. The phone rang, and a lady called, "Are you Crispy?" I said, "Who are you?" She said, "Liz Taylor or somebody."
Yeah.
She said, "Oh, are you coming out to vote?" And I said, "Oh, no, thank you." She didn't say any questions, just plonked the phone down.
Well, you dealt with her really well. I like that. No, I'm not. No. Yeah.
Yeah, so, all very interesting. And as you say, I'd heard that Andrew Bridgen said Rishi Sunak didn't want to be a wartime prime minister. But the fact is, I don't know if you know, war was declared, it officially became Third World War III in, I think it was 2022, when Russia invaded the Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a lady, I did post it, who did all the numbers. You add up the date of the beginning of the First World War, Second World War, and this other date, and they all add up to the same number, 68. So,
Right.
If that's anything to go by.
Well, they
But
do like their numbers, don't they? They do like their numbers.
Yeah. But personally, I think we've been in one long war. I don't think we've been in war ever since the start of World War One, because when I would call them hot spots, hot wars, because after the end of the war, we were still at war, but on the financial and trade basis and immigration, this is all war going on in a different aspect. So I think we've been in one long war, I would say.
I agree. Yeah, I think we have. It all when the people of the time back at in the early 1900s, and even for World War II, and even really up through Vietnam and beyond that, were basically malinformed permanently by an all-powerful media, because there were no other places that the man in the street could go to actually begin to inquire into those other historical accounts, generally referred to as the accounts of the losers of these wars. And it's not until you've actually read their accounts or got some sort of balance with it that you begin to see this patterning effect. So it's not that we don't have the tools or anything, although we don't have them. The tools are in the hands of these other people, and it's the media is still our big challenge. We've got a little media going here. We have to, what Eric was saying earlier about these little cells of 3 people is very interesting. If we can find some way to communicate that so that people act on it, and we build this up. Because we have to, it seems to me one of the things that we could do, and you don't know how successful it would be, is to effectively repel these people on a local level. So we have to strengthen our commitments on a local level, and find ways of doing that that's joyful, not too onerous, because people will barely do anything, But we've got to get people started. I mean, there's so much complacency around, apart from maybe audiences like this, and I do include everybody in the audience here. You wouldn't be here otherwise, and that's why I'm here to sort of inquire into these things, So yeah.
Well, that's why I said that's the only way to do it, to think local and get your own area right, get a network of people around you and gradually repel the system, the matrix. You can't do it all in one go, but you can make a start.
Yeah.
And that's what we want, to decentralise. And then they have no power, because they've never been able to flood us with immigrants. If we were back in the days of very old England, where each parish was its own authority, they wouldn't accept a load of people coming there, have them booted out.
And have communication between those parishes, because, you always have a visiting priest going from one parish to the other, or people going from, parishioners going from one parish to the other to inform what's going on in the other parish, because we do need the unity too. We need the decentralized nature of it, and then be able to come together when the time is appropriate. Because that's the only way it'll work, because then we have organization, which is what we're lacking at the moment. We don't have people communicating.
It's quite right, because a lot of people don't know the church was the actual government. That was the centre of the administration. And the priests, they've changed the names around and given them fancy dresses and things, but the priests were the civil servants, and the mayor would be the bishop, And we still have remembrance of that, up to middle 1900s. You had a post of alderman in the local councils, which they only needed to be elected. I think they went elected only on a 3 yearly. They went 3 elections without having to be elected, because they were the men of experience, and they kept them. And So then you had the councillors who were the new boys who eventually became aldermen.
Yeah, and
So
it's a proper way to vet people too. You know,
Yeah.
I kind of think of it like a laborer in the Bible that talks a lot about people laboring in a vineyard, for instance. And if you're someone new to a parish, the best way would be to go to the parish and say, "Hey, I'm here. I have these skills. I'll go out and pick grapes. You know, show me where the vineyards are. You know, it's a great way to network that way too.
Yeah,
and
it
just
is.
work together."
I mean, that word, someone's just written, Exo's just written in the chat, parish, such a nice word. It is. It is. I think it's because it resonates in an ancient way. We know that there's about 11,000 of them on the footprint of this land. You can find old maps. They're all there.
Yeah.
And we need... I want to work on something like this, like a people's parish network. As a movement, not as a political party, but as a movement, to give people a vision, say this is how it ought to be, this is how it used to be, that aspect of our lives used to work well, and it was a natural way of rebuffing the centralization of power, because everything we've talked about tonight is about this election is about the centralization of power. They don't even want the power here. They want to run off and hang out with all their mates in Europe, and they want to centralize it in the world. They want to wage war all across the world because they want to control all things. We have to find, it's a way of finding out how on a local level we repel that. And the parish, for us, certainly here in England, is absolutely the right word. Even though many young people might not know what it is, they'd know quick enough because there's so much evidence of it around, and it's historically rooted in the bones almost, the parish, and it would be the way to go, And then we make churches, to a great degree, be what they were supposed to be, which is a gathering of the elders to discuss the affairs of the state, of the parish. That's what it would be. Yeah. And then everybody gets more involved in a more simple and direct and honourable way. That would be the aim anyway. I know it would be a little bit more difficult than that, but that would, at least the aim would be there.
And there would be no... Oh, sorry.
Do go.
I was going to say, with the old system, there was no isms. It was just and they didn't have elections, It was all by recommendation, and you had to be a person of substance. In other words, you weren't working for somebody else. You had to have your own land, and you had to be armed. That's why in the old meetings, the Witan in the Saxon days, you had to, when you vote, you had to raise your hand with your sword to show that you were armed. Otherwise, you weren't allowed.
Yeah, I think there needs to be an emphasis too on the priesthood, as far as people who are above and beyond just the normal laity, in the sense that, just like in the Bible, you have Moses and Aaron as the high priests that talk to God on behalf of the people, and can, they're extraordinary people. They're not just your normal person. Because there are differences in men and the qualities of men. Like, some people are more suited to leadership, and others are more, you have to take care of them, especially as people get older, the young people. And so you need these strong leaders also. And that's something that's just been made a mockery of in our society today. And it's kind of a pathetic, pitiful situation we're in, because the people who should be the leaders, they're kind of the laughing stock and the joke now, and seen as weak and leading people to destruction. I'd say a lot of the clergy, that's a kind of, I would see it as that. I mean, what do you think over there? What do you?
I think So I think the church as a whole has been infiltrated, and it's nothing like what it should be. That's why in the biblical days they had a certain tribe. You had to be of that tribe, to be a priest or a civil servant, and to be a ruler, you had to be of the tribe of Judah, which doesn't mean Jew. It was they were a tribe who held the scepter. So you didn't have alien elements entering into your national structure, which I think is a good thing.
Because all this fine detail of it, it appears, it's challenging because much of that natural momentum in our people has been broken down. It's like trying to restore an old way that worked. And the first point is to actually get people familiar with what we're talking about and why it's required. That might not be so difficult. I think the details would take time, but and you see, leadership is a funny thing. If we talk about going back, say, millennia or back to the times of King Arthur, who did exist, two of them at least, the idea of being called to serve your king and defend your nation in battle strikes me as an honourable one. You go, yes, right? No one's sitting around going, the king's horrible. I mean, they did, of course, as it got worse. But you've got this infiltration. So you've effectively got these worm tongues that arrive in the courts. And over a prolonged period of time, peoples are undermined. Then you get the development of spying agencies. We've got, all the guys over here, Walsingham and stuff like that, developing spying in courts. And it just gets darker and darker as we move up to the modern day. Now it's an advanced sort of surveillance system to undermine the authority of people. It's as if we can't just naturally go, well, look, it turns out that Bob, we all think, Bob, that you're the best guy to handle this for the next 5 years. What do you say? Yeah, I think I could do that. And it's a bit like, we want farmers in charge of farming. Don't we?
Not civil servants.
Not civil servants. We don't want sort of planning committees in Westminster saying, we're going to tell you how to organise farming. No, you're not. You're going to shut up. And it's all of that nibbling away at the people who've got the natural mastery of a thing are getting pushed out all the time to be replaced by bureaucrats which are in thrall to the money power.
And we need the media back too. We these organizations here in America like CBS, ABC, NBC, they're all reliant on these court reporting agencies that feed them information of what's going on in these courts all the time. Yeah. I used to work for one where it was a big one on Wall Street dealing with JP Morgan Chase. And I was told that you got to watch out for people digging in our dumpster because, they'll sell that information to a report, one of these networks. And a lot of the things I would see in these depositions, I would hear about on the news the next day. It's like, right. They're definitely tied to the courts. And that's something we need to figure out, because if we're going to have a media organization that runs parallel and superior to these other ones, we need to figure out how that ties into these laws that are being enforced and the courts. Because now we have nothing that does that. There's hardly anything.
Yeah, Paul. Hi.
Hasn't that been the problem all along? People that have absolutely no expertise or knowledge over things, sticking their noses in other people's business and expertise and screwing it all up. Hasn't that been the problem for a century?
Yes.
Or more?
I think so. Yeah, I think it has. We've got it everywhere.
Bureaucratic bumblers.
Yeah. And we've got a lot of ambitious people who don't recognize how mediocre they are. There's no real humility about them. Well, they don't. It's like that. They go, I can do this. You go, well, you're actually not very good at it. And of course, because there's been this championing of equality and everybody can do things, and we don't want any competition at school, because when the kids that are slow don't win the race, they cry. Let them cry. Good. They need to cry. You're no good at running. Find something else to do. It's just a natural teacher. It's as if we want to save you from the pain of life. We never asked for that. We want the pain of life. It's a great teacher. We want it. It's designed that way. I'm not arguing for pointless hardship. That's what they provide us with. The centralized powers provide us with pointless hardship by apparently always going to make it better. And I do think that the sort of coverall statement is everything that they do is a protection racket. It's based on the fear of loss. They imbue the crowd with a sense of a fear of loss. If you don't have a national health, you won't have any health. You need us. If you don't have a pharmaceutical organization, you won't have any drugs to take, and then you need us. You've got to pay for it, by the way. If you don't have a central bank, the economy will go completely bonkers, so you need us. But you will have to pay interest on loans and stuff like that, but it's a small price to pay. If we don't have an army, you'll get overwhelmed, but you will be the ones that go off and fighting it and die and get your brains blown out, killing some other poor bugger that's doing the same thing because they've got the same things going on. So, yeah, that kind of stuff. It's a protection racket. I can't think of a simpler way to describe it. Is they create a fear and anxiety. Look at what they did with COVID. You've got to put a mask on. I do. I've got to put one on. You know.
Oh, no, we're doomed. We're all doomed. Speaking of which, Sketch has his hand up in BPN studio.
Okay.
Sketch, what do you got for us?
Yes. Good day, Paul. I am one of those guys in the far across room that was streaming your thing on Rumble while Paul got it together, and I had to say that on the election, the Bullion Directory says that the British are buying gold in wake of election uncertainty, and also you mentioned Mr. Kennedy. And he and his brother both forced the American Zionist Council to register as a foreign agent, blocking them from donating to U.S. officials. I put a link in the chat. Maybe Paul can get those to you. But I just wanted to say, one more last question. Is it okay if I cuss or not?
No F words. All right. Try and leave out the F-bomb. It's a family show. There's not many families awake at 11 o'clock at night, but we're trying to be decent about this. Okay.
So I guess it is fucking hole.
Right. It is. Oh, yeah. That's not cursing.
Right.
Yeah, Eric comes from Fockham Hall. Fockham. Okay, yeah, that's right.
Okay.
It's his little play on words, and we like him. We like it a lot. Yeah, absolutely. That's not cursing. That's where Eric lives.
Okay.
Yeah.
And have a blessed election day, and we'll have a blessed 4th of July. Thank you so much for today.
Fantastic. Thanks, Sketch. Brilliant. You have a cracking 4th of July, whatever that might mean to you. I have no idea. So yeah, wonderful. So anyway, I think we're covered here. We're just about done. We're down to the last few minutes. We're going to wrap up at 11 here tonight, because I'm sure most listeners here be up all night waiting for the election results to come through. So it looks as though it's going to be Starmageddon. I've got to stop saying that. Nice little quote in here from EXO in the chat. As William Burroughs said, most problems in the world could be solved if people learned to mind their own business. Indeed. But look at us. We can't. I don't know where we go with that. Yeah. It's our job.
It's our job not to mind our own business. Yes, yeah. It's our job to not mind our own business. Otherwise, nobody would get the straight scoop.
Well, it's true. We got to stick our nose in somewhere. Apart from which, I think it's, in a more stable world, none of us probably would have chosen to spend the amount of time that we do paddling around in the puke that is produced by these people, in the sort of appalling behaviour, and it's a gradual sort of incremental increase in evil. There's no other way to describe it. They don't even realise they're doing it, but after 10 or 20 or 30 years of behaving this way, they can't change. And things just continue to go down the same old, stupid train track towards the abyss. It's like I said, we can't change the scenery right now, but if we can find a way to turn the direction of it around, we'd at least go, right, now we've got part of it going in the right direction. And that's what we're looking for. I think parts of it are going in the right direction. And just finding more effective ways is what we're looking for. There's no shortage of knowledge. There's no shortage of information. In fact, you could possibly say there's too much information. We've got a surfeit of it, and learning to thin it down so that we can get points across more rapidly to a wider audience as speedily and as effectively as we can is the great communications challenge. It's not that the truth is hidden from people like us. It's how do we parcel it and promote it and push it so that more people go, yeah, oh, I hadn't thought about that. What do you want me to do? That's what we're looking for. What do you want me to do? Can I help? Yeah. Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
What do I do? Yeah, okay, I haven't quite
down.
figured that one out. But that's what we're looking for, I think, yeah.
We need our own pop stars like Taylor Swift.
But we need our own, do you think? But not
Our
like
own.
Taylor Swift, surely. But we need our own.
Well, I mean, in the sense of, someone who can lead the youth in a positive way rather than the negative way that's being done through people like that.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a comment
missing.
in here. Yeah, you're right. There's a comment here from Billy Silver. Current politicians are the hopelessly charismaless children at school who secretly wanted to be rock stars. I think there's something in that. I've always said that politics is show business for ugly people, and I think it is. It's show business for ugly people. Yeah, they're all actors, and they're very bad. They couldn't get on in a proper thing, so they have to manipulate it all.
And even their show business, the people that they put up there are ugly people with ugly souls in that sense.
They are. They are. And they won't stop. It is. There's something odd about them. Pay attention to me. Why? You're dull, right? You haven't got any original ideas. You're a toady. You go along with what you're told. You'll do anything. This makes you dangerous, you know. And but you can't get that through to them. They're incapable. You know, as I've said before, they go to all these education centres where they're indoctrinated. They come out, we're going to run the world. Hey, but there was no job advertisement for that. Nature does that fine. Let's just get in line with nature, have happy families, seriously, and can you bugger off, please? And they won't. It's a big problem. It is a big, big problem. Listen, we're towards the last few minutes, so final closing statements. Anybody want to say something as we wrap up? Chris, any final words?
Well, we see what horrors arise when we hear the results of the election.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, mind you, I won't have nightmares because, I mean, it's all one horror show anyway. I don't think the election's changed anything, but it's just people's perceptions, you know.
Yes. Yeah, it won't change anything. It's just, we're going to have to get on with our galvanizing and restoring the parish network, the people's parish networks. It would be. I don't even care if it doesn't even go that far. At least I do care because you want to put things in, but it's a constructive step. It's a positive step to take. I think so.
Interestingly, on that, Paul, one of Vogue's show, he was interviewing a mayor up in the north somewhere, and he brought up the fact that since he's retired, there's all these defunct town councils and parishes that, you know, there's nobody puts up to stand for elections, so they're just not advertised. So if you find out where these are, you can usually register to be a candidate. And if nobody puts up, as usually happens, where you just form your council, you know.
Yeah.
And they have quite a lot of influence. And he said the one he set up, they were able to get the council to reduce their tax by 32%. So they do have power. So that might be the way to go.
It might well be the way to go. It might well be. I guess there's so many good people around, and I guess just some kind of little coordinating magic is what we need to try and get a certain type of person to sort of begin. And it's pulling together, like this audience here for this show is fantastic. I love the comments that keep coming through. It's wonderful. It reassures and encourages me, and I hope if you're part of it, it encourages you. And we're all searching for a way to get organised. Yeah, Patrick. Yeah, you were about to say something.
Well, I say, go to your parish, you know, in whatever decrepit state it might be in. Just go there and be the one that changes things. Be the one that sparks that. And it's like in the Bible, the lame man waited for 32 years to go into the pool. He was blind until Jesus finally came and asked him why he didn't, and he said he didn't have a man to help him. So just don't give up and wait. Be patient, but at the same time, stay in that parish. Go there and make a difference, and just being there and talking to people.
Yeah,
that's my statement. Thank you for the show.
Yeah, no, thanks for being here. It's been great, actually. It's I'm never going to forget the 2024 UK general election. Oh gosh. But the 4th of July in America, it's proper home. I'm sorry that these stinking Brits have gone and hijacked your day, obviously for some foul, stinking reason. But it's the day is still young with you guys. What is it? Let's see. You're just gone 5 o'clock for you, Patrick, and 6 o'clock Eastern time. So is it rockets at the ready? What's going on? Will you be getting covered in fireworks? Will much of the nation go bonkers with fireworks? Will there be a lot of that taking place now?
Probably not here because it's going to rain. So the weather interrupts it.
Yeah,
you can't do much about that.
Well,
wow, Paul.
I would like to leave on a positive note. Thank God for politics, because not a one of us has ever been forced to see Nancy Pelosi wearing something that only Britney Spears would wear on stage.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, look, it's been a brilliant show. I've really enjoyed it. It's fantastic. We can't inform you any more now than we could at the beginning about who has actually won the UK general election, thankfully. But if the BBC are correct, it looks like it's a landslide for the Labour globalists as opposed to the Conservative globalists, or whichever one gets in. The referendum party, according to them, the Reform Party, are going to get 13 seats, and Conservative will get 131. The Liberal Democrats will get 61. The Scottish National Party, 10. Others get 25. Maybe we need to coordinate the others. We need an others party all of its own. I'm going to play out with a song. I've played it before. It's another Van Morrison song because I'm just in the mood for this. We're going to play out with Where Have All the Rebels Gone? And you lot are probably rebels, I guess, but in a constructive way. We're not just rebelling pointlessly, but in a highly constructive way. It's Peasants' Revolt 2.0 as far as I'm concerned. So that's it. Thanks to everybody in the chat who's contributed a lot of great stuff tonight. Thank you very much. We'll be back again, of course, next Thursday at the same time. With a 2-hour show, maybe a 3-hour show like this one. I never quite know. And if you didn't call in this week, consider it for next time round, because it's useful to hear different voices bringing in a different sound into the space and some different ideas. So wonderful. Thanks everyone for being here. Here's Van Morrison to play us out for 4 or 5 minutes. I wish you all the best, and hopefully we'll all wake up tomorrow morning in a wonderful, happy world. Don't hold your breath. Bye for now.
Two for the show. It's not very rock and roll. Where have all of the rebels gone? Where have all the rebels gone? Waiting for someone else to make a move. While they're sitting on the fence, well, it's some kind of pretense. I'm not saying much at all. Where have all the rebels gone? just a PR stunt. One for the money, two for the show. Where have all the rebels gone? Where have all the rebels gone? One for the money, two for the show. It's not very rock and roll. Where have all the rebels gone? Were they really all that tough? Or was it just a PR stunt? They're not saying very much, are they? Where have all the rebels gone? Where have all the rebels gone? Hiding behind computer screens. Where the spirit, where the soul. Where have all the rebels gone? Need a real live audience to perform. Where have all the rebels gone? 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 I can't find anyone. Where have all the rebels gone? I can't find, no, not one. All right.
And that's it for this week. Thank you, everyone, for being here. As I said, we'll be back again next week. We just played out with Van Morrison, and we look forward to next week. And think about songs you'd like to hear next week and let us know in the Rumble chat. Keep good. See you soon. Bye for now.